You didn't get your payday?
Got back from a trip where all I had was alcohol and sugar.
Sounds like I got a trip.
like a detox right now. Those are one of my favorite candies though, so very hard.
Okay, and we're live.
Marvelous.
Action. Okay, do you need anything from me? I have to run downstairs.
Oh,
I know, I'm the worst. I'll be back and forth, but I've got to go lead generate, or else I'll be hanged.
that's number one.
Yes.
So, no, I do not need you.
Okay, well, text me if you need me. I'll
Okay.
be right downstairs.
Marvelous. Are you ready for your one-on-one training?
Well, Jacob is behind you, so he's here.
Okay.
But it's
It's funny here, it's definitely usually not.
No, people didn't want to hear what I have to say. Okay. So did they give y'all, so this is very different from when I did Ignite 10 years ago. So do you have all the paperwork for today?
Yes.
Perfect, okay.
We're on session 11.
Yes. Basically contract to close. Okay, so this session is going to talk about the importance of professionalism during the closing process. The biggest thing you'll hear over and over is organization and checklists. You want to be structured. You're the person that is making sure deadlines are met every step of the way for both, really on both sides, even when you're just representing one. But you never know for sure if the other agent is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So you always should just follow up. So we're going to talk about the basic steps in contract to close, identify your responsibilities when you're representing buyers and when you're representing sellers. We'll talk about, and if you have to do other stuff while you're doing this, I'm okay with this. I know this is a lot of attention directly on you because you're the one person in here. I'd be like, oh my Lord. So
There's someone else too.
okay, we're on a roll. We're going to talk about issues that can arise and how to combat through them, and then how to generate new business from each transaction. But we start with, let's do expectations first, and then I need to get y'all's numbers from calling yesterday. And then we have to sit and make calls, and then we get to move forward with you're looking real,
Really done.
y'all haven't been doing that? I was told that was the most important thing.
I think one day we did.
You did one day. Okay, awesome. So today's expectations, I kind of just went over that. Well, it's all the same things. Know the basic steps in contract to close process, identify your contract to close responsibilities when representing buyers and sellers, explore common issues that can occur in contract to close process and solutions, leverage your resources, and then implement post-close systems that ensure referrals for the long term and win clients for life. It tells me to review and play videos, but there aren't any videos today. So, so we have not been reporting numbers every day.
I mean, I think we did one day.
One day. Did y'all make calls yesterday? How about that? Did you make your calls
Oh,
yesterday?
yes.
You did?
Yes, well, I was telling them last time, I'm not getting any response when I make calls. I'm getting more response when I message or text message or something.
And to me, this is not on here, that's still a touch.
Well, and I mean, I feel like it's more of a touch than making phone calls because we're not getting anything. I get voicemails 100% of the time. I've had one person answer, and then it was when we were here, the one time we had to make calls, I had one person answer, and then she ended up telling me her dad was just diagnosed with cancer. So our whole talk was about that, you know, which ended up being great because
And
it's
that's,
a friend of mine
that's
that now I
still
know
a
this is-
touch.
Yes, but it was like, oh my gosh.
Well, and you're
Such a
also
huge
calling
thing.
during everyone's work day.
Right.
So,
But I have, every time I send a text or a message, I may not get an immediate response, but like at some point it's like, hey, I'm so glad you reached out, you know, but I just feel like it's.
and you're calling your sphere?
Mhm.
No, okay.
I have done a couple of for sale by owner
Mhm.
phone calls.
Sorry, grab one of each on that back table.
And those have been the only people out of my sphere that I've been calling.
Have you gone and previewed any of those FSBOs or?
No, I had an appointment with one, and then they never, it wasn't like a formal. It was like, I can come by, you know, Thursday or Friday, what works better? And it was like, probably Friday, let me get back to you. Let me check with my wife. And so then when I called, I'm like, hey, you know, I just want to make sure we're good for tomorrow. And then never any response. So I didn't want to show up.
Yeah,
I don't know if I
no.
should.
Especially since there are so many FSBOs who are just aggressively anti-realtor. You
Right.
don't want to put yourself in a bad situation. You know, there are going to be ones that definitely work out and let you come and
Right.
like they should. But if somebody doesn't give you the confirmation green light, then
Yeah.
I don't know, that's neat. I know there are some people a lot more bold than I am that'll just go knock on that door, but
Yeah.
I don't.
Maybe I'll get there one day when I'm
I
a
don't
little
know.
bit more confident, but that is something I want to get better at, is calling for sale by owners,
Yeah.
because there are so many right now.
Well, and those are people that have already raised their hand saying, I'm ready to sell.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll see if somebody comments on here. Did you make your calls yesterday?
I did, yeah, I made some calls. Yes.
And who are you calling? Your sphere?
I was actually calling to open house leads.
Okay. Oh, good. So you've been doing open houses?
Right.
Okay.
During the weekend.
And so how did that go? Did you get any positive?
Yes, some of them answered the phone. Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked through. I got some more information about their needs. I did some more search in MLS and sent them some more houses.
Good.
Requested some feedback, but never heard back from them.
Okay.
Probably, yeah, I can follow up today and see
Yep.
if they have any feedback.
Yeah, keep following up. And sometimes open houses are very much a long game,
Right.
right? Like I have several lifetime clients now that I picked up from open houses, and some of it was seeing them at open houses over and over, and then building that relationship, and then eventually you're the one that they trust and love. And so it could be something that pans out in 2 weeks. It could be something that pans out in 2 years. But it's not, and it's basically free. So just having a really good system for following up and making sure you've already put them in command, and making sure you're keeping track of them. Don't let them go, because again, it's like FSBOs, they're not quite as hot of a lead as a FSBO. However, there's somebody who's theoretically actively looking to buy. So it's good. Did you make calls yesterday?
I did, actually.
How did that go?
Can't get anybody to answer their stupid phone. It's really
That's what we were
frustrating.
just kind of talking about.
So I text and I
Yep.
call and
Okay.
nothing yet, but
And so who are you calling?
I've got some people in my neighborhood that I've been trying to farm, and so I have kind of neglected command this week. I feel kind of bad about that, but I haven't had time. So I have a bunch that I want to send a mass text message out to my group, to my neighborhood, because houses are starting to go on the market, and Eddie Williams sold 2 houses in my neighborhood. I'm like, really? Seriously? And they were both in contingent first. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah. So it's we'll work on our phrasing. It's not that you didn't have time, it wasn't a priority, right? Because we
No,
have,
I have my first listing and I feel like a chicken with my head cut off running around trying to take care of them and help them. And suddenly the day is just like gone.
yeah. So do you have, like a mentor or coach that's helping you with that first listing to make sure?
Jay's helping me.
Oh, good. Very good. Yay.
So,
Perfect.
but
Oh, I bet it's hot, huh? As soon as it went on.
it had to go against the market. So we did pictures yesterday.
Gotcha.
We did the 3D thing yesterday. We did some pictures the day before. And then it will hit the market tomorrow.
Awesome.
So
Where is it?
it's over in Shady Shores.
Nice.
It's a nice little, it's a one of the older homes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad, it's like literally 0.4 miles from the boat launch.
Oh, nice.
So they want to move to Colorado where their kids are.
I would move to Colorado.
I don't know, they said Colorado prices are like even worse than our prices here.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be moving there for the prices.
Oh,
I'd be moving there for the weather and
Weather,
family.
yeah.
I have family in Colorado also.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it talks about the videos that don't exist, so we're gonna skip past that. Okay, so I know y'all have only done it once, however, it was stressed to me that y'all make calls right now. So I'm gonna ask everyone to make calls. It can be text messages, because I understand that's how I communicate with most people, is text messages. So let's just spend a little time, however you're wanting to do your lead gen. I'm gonna set a little timer and I'm gonna do some as well with y'all. And then we'll jump into the meat of today. And there's a script in here also. I don't know if this is one y'all have seen. I don't know if they're giving y'all the same one every day or if it's a new one, but if you flip to page 9, there's also a script for calling if you want to use it. And feel free to ask me questions too.
And this weekend, Saturday, we have an open house at my house, so that's pretty perfect too. I think we're doing Saturday for sure, and we're gonna see how close we may do a Sunday too. Yeah, otherwise I told them.
I just need to mention that we will be doing
I,
this.
yeah.
So have you tried, I apologize, what's your name?
It's David.
David, I can't remember that, it's my brother's name. Have you tried videos for your open house follow-up?
I've heard of this. So I was like,
So that's one thing that has been taught to me. So, oh, I didn't tell you, I'm Rebecca Douglas. Hi, nice to meet you all. Hi, Rebecca Douglas. Well, y'all are right there, but you're right there to me. It's weird. So I've been in real estate 10 years. The first 7.5 of that, I was on a team. I was a buyer's agent. the only buyer's agent on a team. And then about 2.5 years ago, I stepped out on my own. So, and I'm on the ALC. So if y'all have any questions or anything, I'm happy to help. So, videos. So people might not answer your call. They don't know that number. They might not even look through your text, but if somebody sends you a video, you're gonna watch it. You're like, oh, okay, cool. You're supposed to make them pretty short. Don't drag on, 30 seconds or less, really. And talk about, I know a lot of agents who do it as soon as open house is over. They'll sit in their car or the house if the owners aren't coming right back, and they'll go down their list of leads and shoot them a little video. And if you're good about kind of taking notes about who they are, what they want, something you found in common with them, whatever you use to connect with them during the open house, mention it. Let them know, whatever, when you're in the office tomorrow, you're going to research additional properties for them or whatever. But you'll get a higher view and response rate when you're using those videos, because that's also setting you apart. Say they went to 5 open houses and they get text from 4 agents and you sent them a video mentioning them by name and talking about something y'all talked about. That's going to build a connection with them faster and stronger than just a text or even just a phone call. So that's something I would try.
Right.
And they don't need to be perfect. Like, don't sit and stress over it and reshoot them. And like, you're a guy, you're probably more comfortable with just shooting one. We're like, oh, what angle should we be at? And my face in this one. So no, just shoot it, because they don't care what angle, they just want to talk. So that's something I would try. Maybe next open house or something. Just give a shot and see if you get a better response rate from shooting those little videos. So
Yeah, I can try it.
So with my mass text message that I want to send to everybody, with a little video introducing myself as being the neighborhood. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only realtor in our neighborhood, but
you never are.
Yeah.
There's realtors everywhere.
so I could just,
Yeah, and so when you send, are you using like a system to send that mass
I
text? or
haven't
not?
done it yet.
Okay.
I'm like compiling it. So I kind of cheated and I went through our phone book for our neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And so I'm cheating and using that.
Hey, that's fine. Those are people who have, because you can opt out of those. So, I mean, there are people who are okay with. Now, they might turn around and tell you to not.
And that's fine, I'll remove them,
Yeah.
but I figured they made their self public to
Yeah.
everybody in the neighborhood to contact them. 'Cause
So,
I
yeah.
really did.
You can shoot. So obviously when you're doing mass text, you're not doing like a group text on your
No,
phone,
and
right?
I would sit there and painstakingly do one at a time.
Yeah, try videos. Maybe they've seen your face. Maybe, I'm a lot better with faces than I am, or I'm a lot better with faces than I am with names.
Me too.
Like if you didn't have the same name as my brother, I would have forgot your name already. So,
That's the way I
it just goes in and out. But if I've seen your face, I'm like, man, you're familiar. So anyway, yeah, shooting a little video. Think of something, a value proposition, something you want to offer to them, instead of just say, hey, I'm your local expert, call me if you have any questions. Say, hey, if you want a comparative market analysis on your property, free of charge, let me know, or something like that. If you want our neighborhood statistics sent to you every month, let me know, that kind of thing. Offer something of value instead of just throwing your name in the ring. Because just like all of us, everyone knows 15 realtors already. There's got to be something that's setting you apart besides just being their neighbor. But yeah, I would do a video,
You said you got the numbers from where?
So
like a neighborhood
in our
directory.
neighborhood directory, well, it's for my neighborhood, so all the homeowners, they had it on our, I think it's on our
She
HOA.
only has it because she's
In
It's on
that
our over
neighborhood,
there, it's in my HOA,
Oh, it's in the HOA?
yeah.
So that's not typically something that's published for every single neighborhood that you can just go out and get.
Uh-huh.
It's something like, sometimes you'll have, if you have a kid in school, all the parents in that
Parent
class are
directory.
gonna give that directory or whatever, and that's,
Yeah.
you only have access to that when you're in that. Same thing with that HOA.
Yeah.
It must be a small enough neighborhood where they You don't share that information, but anyway, it's just available to people who live in the neighborhood.
So if I go to my HOA, are they gonna provide it?
Maybe.
Possibly, it depends. It's something that's required. Like my HOA doesn't do it. But I mean, every single HOA is different, so it's definitely worth a shot. Okay, I think we're gonna move on.
I have a question. I know
Yes.
we're doing phone calls, but I have my listing that goes live today. And so
Yay, everyone's got listings going live. Okay.
I'm trying to get everything
Mhm.
uploaded that I need. So this is a newer build. They've
Mhm.
only lived there for like a year and a half. They have an inspection,
Mhm.
and so it's listed on the seller's disclosure.
Mhm.
Do I attach that onto the like transaction desk? Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure.
Yes, yes. Otherwise, you're gonna have 15 agents asking for it.
Okay.
Okay. So this is contract to close. And this basically starts when you go under contract and all the way until after it closes and funds. That's what we're talking about today. So what we consider a successful contract to close process is it closes on time as expected. The process is smooth and painless for all parties, and you win future business due to your awesome customer service. So what are some things that you think you can do, say, provide that's going to ensure those outcomes for every one of your transactions? Feel free to chime in, virtual world.
I think open communication.
Mhm. Big, big, big. You're not going to over communicate.
Keeping your client appraised of all the steps and stuff that's going on, so they're not left just kind of wondering what's happening.
There's the timer to stop our communication time for us to turn it off. Anyone else? Y'all are real talkative out there. You know, I'm muted on every one of their computers. So you want to be knowledgeable. And every transaction is different. You're going to run into like I've been in the business 10 years and sold 250-ish houses or something myself. And there was still a closing last week where there were new things happening left and right. And we were like, what the heck fire?
Like,
Be real careful with my language. It was also the dumbest lender I've ever worked with in the history of ever. I had the listing. Even the title company said, I don't know how this lender still has their doors open. So that added to the chaos. However, I had never listed a manufactured home before. So I didn't know all of the tag issues and what certain inspections were going to be required and all that kind of extra stuff. So I learned a lot with that one. So you're never going to know. I'm not gonna say you're never gonna know 100% of everything, right? That's one thing that I like about real estate is it's different and keeps you on your toes and all that kind of stuff. However, you need to know the general timeline of contract to close and what is expected of you, right? And coming from contribution, wanting it to be you want to represent your client to the best of your ability and make it a win for them. However, you also don't want to just, and this is me as your head of culture, you also don't want to just completely run over the other side. We're just seeing a little more of that in this market. Sellers, and obviously there's only so much you can do if you have a crazy seller, but anyway, trying to make it a win-win, because that's your name attached to it as well. And like you said, communication, over communicate is big, big, big. And then basically it's project management skills. Having these checklists is going to be very important, and they provided you with some in there. it's, so back when I started real estate, we actually like printed everything, we had folders, and all the red folders were listings and the blue folders were buyers and blah, blah, blah. And we had the checklist at the front, and every day I was opening that folder and going down that checklist and looking at timeframes and making sure I was, what's due in the next couple of days that I need to make sure is getting taken care of, or when's the last time I followed up with a lender, that kind of stuff. Just making sure you're touching your file. Obviously, you don't have to have everything printed. We're very digital now, but following these timelines, checklists, timelines, communication. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is important. Okay. This is how you're gonna make it happen. Know the process. Systems equal success. Seize the golden opportunity and get paid. And I'm gonna go over what all of those mean. And kind of like I said earlier, even though the other agent should be a project manager on their side of the deal, that doesn't always happen. So it's okay to follow up. If it's your listing, it's okay to follow up with that lender. It's okay to touch base with that agent and ask how things are going, check in with title, that kind of stuff. Don't just say, well, that's not my side of the deal, so I'm not gonna mess with it, because that's a real quick way for a transaction to fall apart. Okay, so knowing the process. Closing, sometimes known as settlement, is a detail-driven process that brings together a variety of parties to legally finalize a sales transaction. There's a lot of people listed on here that aren't. They say some of these people show up at closing. Never had these. So typically at closing, it's going to be your client, obviously the escrow agent from title, or it could be a mobile notary, depending on the situation. And if you have the buyer, sometimes the lender shows up. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's more of they don't need to be there. It's more of almost like a referral thing for them, wanting to show good customer service and also being able to answer questions if clients have any. But 99% of the questions they're going to have at the closing table can be answered by title or you. And some agents don't go to closing. I prefer to go to closing when I'm available. Again, you don't have to be there. You're not integral to that closing step. However, you're there to answer their questions. I always have a little extra stuff that I add to the conversation and setting up for my future touches with these clients. And then some agents even ask for referrals at the closing table because everybody's happy and excited. Usually, sometimes they're not. So in your project management position, your job is to make sure that everyone knows what's supposed to happen, when it's supposed to happen, and to make sure it happens when it's supposed to happen. Blah, blah, blah. And then y'all have this, right? The whole contract close timeline little thing. Okay. Have any of y'all done a deal yet? Y'all are brand new. Okay. So you're gonna show, if you got the buyer, show clients properties. If you have the seller, you're gonna list that property. Then you go into the offer stage, submit your offer. They're either gonna reject it, accept it, or counter it. Once all parties have agreed on terms and everybody signed, it's executed, so you're officially under contract. That's when all of your timelines, your timeframes start. Okay. So I have an admin, and she has a whole spreadsheet where once we go under contract, she goes through that contract and pulls all of those timeframes, because a lot of them are very negotiable, and types them all up in this spreadsheet so she can follow along for me, because that's not my strong point. So that's good for you to do. Go through, and if you need to add it to your Google Calendar, there are apps that help you track it. If you need to write it on a notepad next to your desk, however your brain works, make sure you're, and I have contract to close. When I used to hire out contract to close, they would send me a page. Once I send them the contract, the next day they'd send me back a page that had all of the steps that we were going to go through and all the dates when everything is due. And then as we, like, once the survey was, they say, okay, survey is due on August 5th. Then when they received it on or before August 5th, they would update that on the spreadsheet and send me the updated one, right? So however your brain works where you can track those dates and remember them, do that, right? So then your buyer gives their option and earnest fund to the title company. Yay, that it's one check now to the title company. You're not having to chase around the seller. They have the property inspected. You're in your option period. That's when they can have the property inspected, negotiate repairs, terminate for any reason they want, and all they're risking is their option fee. Very important that your option and earnest are turned in on time. If you don't turn those in on time, your client doesn't have an option period, right?
Do we turn it in, or does the agent or the seller take it to title?
No, the agent for the seller, it's between you and your buyer
sorry,
to
for
get
the
it to,
buyer.
yeah, if you have the buyer, it's between you and your buyer to get it to title. That's up to you. 95% of the time, my client takes it themselves. Sometimes they can't because of work, or the listing agent chose a title company on the other side of the Metroplex or whatever. And sometimes I will pick the check up for them and take it. They can overnight it if they want, FedEx, and they have the delivery receipt. A lot of title companies are now using Zocam, where the client can actually just wire the funds straight to them, so nobody's having to deliver anything. The last several title companies I've worked with have actually offered that. They'll send the instructions to your client once you're under contract, and then the client can just go online and send the funds straight to title, so nobody's having to go anywhere.
So as the listing agent, once we accept an offer, I take the title company?
So that's negotiated during the actual contract. So on page 1 of, actually it's on page 2 now. On page 2 of the contract, right at the top, it's going to tell who the title company is and which location, and then how much your earnest funds and
But
option fee are.
You can, like, you and your seller can choose, have a preferred title company, right?
Correct. So here are my thoughts on that. If the seller is paying for the owners, so in this market, the listing agent pretty much gets to do what they want in regards to the title company, right? And typically the owner's title policy is a seller paid expense. However, in this market, we're seeing more and more buyers pay for it. So you used to be able to say, as a listing agent, well, if you want a different title company, then your buyer can pay for the owner's title policy. Well, in this market, we're seeing more buyers pay for that owner's title policy and still have to go with whatever title company the listing agent wants, because typically it's the listing agent, it's not the seller. Every once in a while you'll have a seller who has a preference. Like I have investors, they do flips, they have a title company they want to use, so we always stick with them. But all the other times it's whoever typically that listing agent has a relationship is where they do it. So if right now, because of this market, if this seller has 5 offers to choose from and they're super close, and that maybe all the terms are right neck and neck, and one buyer is agreeing to use the title company that the listing agent wants, and one wants to use one that their buyer's agent wants, that listing agent might encourage that seller to take the offer with the title company they want. So the title company is chosen before you go under contract. It's part of the contract, and it's just another negotiable part of the contract. So there are typically, if it's a well-known title office, I'm good with it. When I have the buyers. Now, if it's somebody I've never heard of or one of the very few I've had a really bad experience with, I might give more pushback on that and explain to the buyers why and explain to the listing agent why and that kind of stuff. But typically right now as a buyer's agent, you don't have, much say. Now in the MLS, there's, when I'm writing an offer for buyers, I go into the MLS and check, because listing agents, you can put your preferred title company in the listing, right? And so when I'm writing an offer for a buyer, I'm going to look for that seller's or that listing agent's preferred title company. Because again, if it's a reputable company, I want to do whatever is going to make that listing agent happy and comfortable in the transaction. So that's part of my offer steps that I take, is always checking. I have no idea if they can send, if I'll be notified when they send messages. I don't know. Again, I don't think they're really there. Okay, so you're under contract, your option and earnest have been delivered, your client has had the inspection done. Hopefully nothing crazy comes up. So they always send at least 3 options of anything you're sending to your clients. If you're sending them home warranty companies, send them at least 3 different home warranty companies. Inspectors, you'll see on that first, well, if you pick them up in order. So one of the pages I gave you is just an example. This is the email I send out to my clients once they go under contract. Like, hey, congratulations, you're under contract. These are your next steps. It's telling them how much their earnest and option fee are and where it needs to be delivered. Which again, that used to be 2 separate checks. So that was a little more annoying to have to deal with. Now it's just 1 check to title. So telling them how much, where to deliver it, and your timeline. Because again, you're the transaction coordinator. So they need to know, hey, it's Monday. They don't just have until, you know, whatever, the end of the week. They have those 3 days. So tell them by, you know, Thursday, end of business day, this has to be turned in. And then their other thing to do right away is to schedule their inspection. I make sure I let them know you can use whoever you want, because they can. However, if you need recommendations, most of them are all going to ask for your recommendation, right? Because you're the expert, not them. If you need a recommendation, here are some that I recommend, and I give at least 3. And so that's what I send out, because you're going to tell them the same stuff over and over, and they're going to forget, because again, you're the expert. You do this all the time. They do this, maybe this is their first time ever, or maybe they do it once every 5 to 10 years or whatever. Whatever the situation may be. And the market changes every time they do it too. So, and even the steps change, you know, again, you used to have 2 checks. Hi, you used to have 2 checks and now it's 1. So you're the one holding the hands, but I like to have stuff in writing. Hi.
I'm gonna come over here and just get my stuff.
You're good.
Can I get a copy of those?
That's what's right there. Sorry, I snagged those 2 when they walked in. And get yourself a payday, because we're teaching you how to get to a payday, unless you're on a sugar and alcohol detox. I like to have stuff in writing that they can refer back to. So, oh yeah, I need to go have this turned in to this address by this time, whatever. Yeah, so it's nice. This is one of those just templates to just have and tweak it however you want. This is legit. This is not Keller Williams. This is just what Becky does. So, I'm Becky.
No, these are great things to have. I like them.
And it's easy too. I'll go and I just copy and paste next client, and then I go in and, you know, change the few variables in there and send it. So, once they have the inspection done, I recommend clients not attend the entire inspection. Inspectors have a routine, just like all of us. So they're in the middle of a routine doing things, and inevitably you've got a buyer that's pointing stuff out, asking questions, and getting them off of their routine, and they could inadvertently miss something, or it takes a lot longer than it should. I always tell clients, attend at the end. You'll have about a 30 to 45-minute review at the end, where the inspector is going to go over everything they found and answer questions. And so it's also good to have a good relationship with your inspectors and feel comfortable that they're not alarmist. There are some inspectors I won't work with anymore because of the way they present information to clients, and it just scares the bejesus out of clients. And obviously I want them to be, oh, someone else coming on. Obviously I want my client to have all the information and make a smart decision. However, there's some stuff that is not as bad as it sounds, and I don't need an inspector making it sound worse than it is and blowing deals up. So anyway, the inspector will go over everything in that review. They'll ask, client can ask any questions, and most inspectors will also say, your client, this is my cell phone number. If you read the report later and have any questions, let me know, reach out to me. So the good ones will stay, because you're not the expert in that field, right? You're gonna hear 1,000 inspection reports, so you're gonna know what they're talking about, but you're not the expert. So it's better if they have questions to have them reach out to the inspector. Just like when they have questions about their loan, they're gonna reach out to the lender, not you, because you're not the lending expert. So then you negotiate repairs. Same thing as the offer contract. You're gonna submit their repair request. Seller is either gonna accept, reject, or counter. Counter. I need some water. So then once you move out of the option period, that's typically when, if there is a lender, if it's not a cash deal, then the lender is going to order the appraisal, unless you're using Keller Mortgage, in which case they order the appraisal on day one of the contract. Because, so the reason most lenders wait until after the option period is because the appraisal is a fee that buyer is stuck with no matter what, right? If the appraisal is done, they're paying for that appraisal. So if there's something crazy that comes up during the option period and they terminate, but the appraisal's already been done, which doesn't happen now with these super short option periods and long appraisal timeframes. But anyway, this is the rationale that buyer's gonna have to pay for that appraisal either way. So they wait and make sure they've made it through the option period and are gonna move forward with the purchase, and then they order it. Keller Mortgage, because they cover that appraisal fee, they order it on day one. I've actually had appraisals come back before the 5-day option period is over right now, working with Keller Mortgage. I love Keller Mortgage. Joe Bistricki, he's my Keller Mortgage guy. Which is really cool. You can actually connect in your app, in your customized app, you can connect with a specific Keller Mortgage loan officer if you have one that you build a relationship with. So then when clients use your app to submit a loan application, it goes straight to your preferred. Just a side note. I've been working with Joe for like 3 years, since right at the beginning of Keller Mortgage. So that's who I just send all my people to. So anyway, once you're past the option period, typically that's when the appraisal is ordered. It's done by the lender, not you, not the client. I like to, again, that's one of those follow-up things, whether I have the buyer or the seller, I like to follow up with the lender afterwards and confirm it's been ordered and ask when the due date is. Because they'll send out the request to their appraisal management company. An appraiser is going to pick it up, and then it gives them the date that it's due back to the lender. And that's something I like on my timeline that I can follow up with when I have an idea of when that appraisal is coming back. Title's going to run their check on title, make sure it's a clear title. They're going to send the title commitment to the buyer and the buyer's agent. It's a good idea to look over those if you have a preferred title company, or if you don't already. I mean, we've got one literally that shares a building with us. Go ask for one so you can look over it, kind of understand what you're looking at, because they look very foreign at the beginning, just like a lot of this stuff where you're going to be receiving. So it's a good idea to look over it and kind of understand what to look for liens and, you know, anything like that.
And for title commitments, do we have, I think, is it 3 days to like ask about like any?
It depends on what's in the contract. That's one of those negotiable things. I put 3 days.
Okay, and that's just, the 3 days is for if you see something that's off on the title commitment, you can ask them to fix it?
Yeah.
And after the 3 days, they won't fix it?
Well, no, it's not that. It's you can't use it as a reason to terminate. There are a lot of ways in a contract, in the Texas contract, for buyers to get out of transactions if you really know what you're doing. Even if you're, oh, let me hurry up and get this offer over, we don't have the seller's disclosure yet. You put in there that you don't have the seller's disclosure. It's given to you after you go under contract. You have way more time to terminate based on what's in that seller's disclosure versus when it's done up front. So as a listing agent, I always want my seller's disclosures done and uploaded in MLS before I go on the market, or when I go on the market, because that's taking away an out from buyers.
And the
Um,
survey, is that another way out? Like if we don't have the survey and we get it later, is that not usually used?
Yes.
Okay.
And the contract is written differently now. I wish I had printed one for myself. So for the surveys, the first one now says that if the seller's survey is, so the seller's going to provide a survey. If it's not acceptable, then you have your two check marks. Either the buyer's going to buy a new one or the seller's going to buy a new one. Well, there used to not be a time frame on when that seller had to turn the survey in to title. There is now. And I want to say it's 3 days. And if you have the listing and your seller hasn't turned in that survey in 3 days, then your seller is buying a new survey, no matter what those check boxes say. Because it says in bold that if that seller doesn't turn the survey in on time, the seller is responsible for buying a new one. So make sure, again, listing agents ahead of time, you're getting that seller's disclosure filled out, you're getting that survey, and you're getting that T47 from them up front. That way, as soon as you go under contract, you can get it to title and you're not, and real talk, I bought a survey in April for my sellers because the new contract started at the beginning of April. I didn't realize that time frame was in there. I didn't get the survey to title in time, so my seller had to buy a survey for the buyer, even though in the contract it was buyer expense. So I didn't have to, but I chose to cover the cost of that survey because that was my fault. And I'm the expert and I'm following the timelines and I'm very much, I'm going to make it right and keep clients happy. And that's how I built my business. But anyway, so just knowing those little time frames. So yes, read that paragraph again and make sure you're turning, again, that's something else that's in your little timeline up front. I've gone under contract. I have until Thursday to get, if I have the listing, to get that survey to title.
So it's probably a good practice if you can to get the seller's disclosure, the title, and T47 and have them uploaded when you're doing your MLS listing and it's already there attached.
Well, not title, but survey.
Survey. That's
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes. I like to have all that stuff while I'm uploading pictures and getting my listing live. Like I have one that's going live tomorrow once I get pictures back, and I already have the seller's disclosure and survey, and I'm just waiting on the T47 back from them. I'm getting that stuff. It's going to be uploaded when I put that listing live.
How much, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I know, I've asked already, go for it.
So even if you have the survey and T47 in MLS uploaded, do you need to turn it into title company or no?
Yes, because title's not sitting there checking MLS for you. Like you send them the contract, go ahead and send the survey and T47 over at the same time.
So send the title company the listing contract? Or
No,
the offer?
The offer
Okay,
contract.
okay.
Yeah, the 1 to 4 contract.
Okay.
They don't need the listing agreement.
Okay.
They only need the 1 to 4 contract, and then they need the survey and T47.
And the buyer's agent usually sends that, right? Or is that just whoever?
Typically, in my experience, it's whoever chose the title company. Because like if I choose Freedom Title and Flower Mound, I know all their email addresses and everything, and that other agent might not know. They don't know which escrow agent I choose at that office. So like if it's the listing, and we still use my title company, I go ahead and send the contract to title and I copy the other agent.
Okay.
That way title has the other agent's contact information, and then that other agent has title's contact information.
Okay.
And the title will usually reply, thank you. And so then everybody has everyone's phone numbers and emails and all that stuff.
And then the buyer's agent would send it to the lender?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And as the buyer's agent, if I'm the buyer's agent and I send that contract, I also copy the lender. So title, because title needs the lender's contact information too.
Okay.
So it's good to just send a big
Yeah.
email and copy everyone in the transaction except your clients, because you don't want to, even though their email information is on the contract and the notices form, they don't need to be part of all of those emails,
Yeah.
right?
What if, like, my sellers don't have a survey, so we put in there that the buyer will need to purchase one? Will that be the buyer's responsibility to submit that to title, or?
So in the contract, that first paragraph is if, for the survey, is if they have one, right? And then if it's acceptable or not acceptable. Well, the next 2 check boxes are, there's not a survey and buyer's gonna pay for it, and there's not a survey and seller's gonna pay for it. So whichever one is checked on there, title is gonna look at that and say, oh, okay, so-and-so is responsible for the survey. Their title will order it.
Okay.
And then at closing, they'll get the survey and then it'll be a line item,
Okay.
you know, charged to whichever person on the contract is supposed to pay for it. Lots of good questions. Okay, so then appraisal comes back. During all this, the lender is going to be asking for additional documents from the buyer. If you have like Keller Mortgage, they do full underwritten approval ahead of time, where they get everything from the buyer up front, which is nice. That's a much stronger offer. If I say, hey, listing agent, this buyer is fully underwritten approved. All this lender needs to close is an accepted contract and an appraisal, and we're closing. That's a lot stronger than I've gone to loandepot.com and entered whatever information I want to enter, right, as a buyer, because I think this is what I make and I think this is what's supposed to happen. And it might close, but I don't know. I need 21 days from the date of contract for the lender to get everything from the buyer and to submit it to underwriting. They might ask for additional information, blah, 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 right? So when you're making an offer, if you have a lender that does underwritten approval up front, you can put forward a much stronger offer. But anyway, if they haven't gotten everything up front, then the lender is going to be asking the buyer for additional documents, and underwriter is going to look and ask for clarification on something, blah, blah, blah. And in the interim, you're waiting for the appraiser to come out. Appraisals take about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the property size, as long as it's not like big acreage or whatever. They're going to take measurements and pictures and be gone. Your client doesn't have to leave. Depending on their personality type, it might be a good idea to ask them to leave, because some like to just talk and share more information than they need to about anything that's going on with the contract or the property or anything. So I just encourage people to be out of their house for that block of time, but you run your business how you want. Once the appraisal is back with the lender, if it made value, hooray. If it didn't, the lender is going to reach out, and this is by lender, however they want to do it. I have a listing where the appraisal came in low, but they waived their appraisal clause, and their third party, they're buying it no matter what. But anyway, the lender reached out to both me as the listing agent and the buyer's agent and said, hey, we're going to be able to submit 3 comparables to argue this appraisal. What comparables do y'all want me to use? And so me and the buyer's agent worked together, picked our comps and sent them to the lender, and then they submitted it. And it may or may not change the appraised value. That's totally up to the lender. If it's, okay, so we're in a different market now. If it's low and your client has waived their appraisal contingency in one of 2 ways, if they've fully waived it no matter what, your client is coming up with the additional funds to close, right? Additional cash. Make sure they understand that as a buyer's agent. Make sure they understand what they're agreeing to. Because there have definitely been offers where I'm like, there's no way this person knows that. If I'm the listing agent, there's no way this buyer knows that that's what they're agreeing to. And as a listing agent, it's a good practice to ask for proof of funds. Say I have a $500,000 house and you're offering $600,000 on it and fully waiving the appraisal contingency. I would like to see proof of funds that you have that additional $100,000 to cover it if there is an issue. Now, if they say I waive it, if the appraisal comes back at 550 or more, I'm going to guarantee it. So then I want to see proof of funds for that $50,000 that you're saying you're going to make my seller whole, and make sure that your clients understand what they're agreeing to if you have the buyer.
If you put that in, where do you document that? The asking for proof of funds, is that?
Well, I mean, it's not part of the contract. That's just something I prefer to
So is
do.
that just something you like email the buyer's agent and say, okay, so they agreed to this and I need proof of funds that this is going to go through?
Mhm,
before I
absolutely,
accept
especially-
their offer?
Yeah, so if you're negotiating a specific offer or you're reviewing multiple offers,
If
if,
you're still reviewing it, you can ask for it.
I mean, you can ask for it at any point, but there's no point in asking for it after you've gone under contract.
Yeah, and that's the part I would want to avoid going through that headache. And they can't show proof of funds and then the offer's not gonna work.
Right, because as the seller, so if it's your listing, you pretty much can't get out of the contract, right? Unless the buyer defaults. So if it's my listing, I want to check everything up front. You're never gonna be able to 100% guarantee that a transaction is gonna close, but I wanna take these extra steps to try to avoid issues during the contract. And so again, if I'm reviewing one offer or several offers and they have that appraisal waiver, I'm gonna reach out to the buyer's agent and just request, hey, my sellers would like to see proof of funds that they have more than enough to cover the appraisal guarantee that you've added in this contract. Because it's a new it's a document now. We used to have what a cluster. Agents used to write it however they want, or whichever title company you worked with, that title company wrote the verbiage however they want. It was all in special provisions and it was a hot mess. Now it's a pretty new document. So they need to understand what they're agreeing to, and I want to make sure they can follow through with what they're agreeing to, right? And so doing it before you go under contract is the only way to do it. Yeah, like if you do it after you go under contract and they don't have the funds, you can't get out of it unless it appraises low and they don't make it right. Then you also have legal issues at that point. Whee! So anyway, once the appraisal's back, you help your client through whatever needs to happen. If it made value, cool. If it came in low, depending on if you have the seller or buyer, and then depending on what appraisal waiver is in there, you work through that with them and the lender. And then the underwriter has given their approval. Yay, like everything's resubmitted to underwriter for final loan approval. Then you have clear to close. Then they send instructions to title. Title fills out some documents and sends it back to them. And then that's how the closing disclosure is created. Several years ago, Texas changed it where those closing disclosures have to be sent and signed off on at least 3 days before closing. Once that closing disclosure is sent to your client, if you have the buyer, and they review it and sign it, and that doesn't mean it has to be the final closing disclosure, but it has to be a completed one, right? Some numbers can change a little bit, but that starts the 3-day countdown. And then and I like that Texas did this. It's been frustrating in some situations, but it makes complete sense because it used to be your client could show up to closing and 30 minutes before closing, they're given the HUD statement, the HUD one, which is what we used to be before closing disclosure. And they didn't know what they were, they didn't have time to review all the little charges in there and figure all this other stuff out. Maybe it messed with their money they had to bring to close. It felt like a deceptive practice, right? Like, hey, you have to close in 20 minutes. Or even, hey, you're closing right now. This is the very first time you've looked at this HUD statement. You don't have time to review it, just have to sign. So now the closing disclosure goes out and then it starts that 3-day countdown. You have some lenders who will not send that out until they have final loan approval, until they have the clear to close. And that's just how their company does it, right? That can be a little frustrating if they're running behind. Some lenders, even though they don't have the clear to close yet, they're close. They'll go ahead and send it out to start that 3-day countdown, knowing that some numbers might change a little and everyone's okay with that, but at least it starts that 3-day countdown. So then the next day when they get their clear to close, we can close in 2 days instead of that next day. Then the closing disclosure goes out and then it starts our 3-day close, 3-day countdown. So again, that's just another thing to put on your little timeline, is making sure that closing disclosure has gone out at least 3 days before closing.
What happens when it's a cash offer, or like they're
They
buying
just
cash?
show up and
And
sign.
Okay, so the HUD will be given to them at closing. It's not 3 days before?
It doesn't start a countdown,
Okay.
but
So you-
the title companies, you can ask for that HUD statement way earlier too.
Okay.
Because cash, all they're waiting on is title work to be done, right? So really you can close cash deals in like 10 days, depending on the title company you work with. And so at any point during that transaction, I'll, when I have a cash buyer, I'll go ahead and ask title for the HUD-1 and send it to my client. Because usually, you know, they need to pull cash from wherever, make it liquid, that kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
then you come up to the day of closing. And so again, some of this stuff is variables based on title companies you work with. Some title companies will require funds be delivered in a certain way. If it's cashier's check or wiring instruction or wire the funds. Super important to reiterate to your clients that wire fraud is prevalent right now. And if they choose to wire their funds, they need to call the title company directly. Don't be the go-between for that, right? That opens up all sorts of liability on your shoulders. If your client wants to wire the funds, they need to contact title directly to confirm the wiring instructions. Tell them, do not trust any emails, even if it looks, don't trust emailed instructions, wiring instructions, even if it looks like it came from their agent or title or a lender, any of that kind of stuff. Because, you know, that's fraudulent. Once you wire those funds away, it's gone, right? And there's some steps they can take to try to get it back, but I mean, it's really difficult. It'll blow up deals and hurt finances and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, reiterate to your client that they need to verbally confirm wiring instructions. Some title companies, if you bring a cashier's check, I've had ones require 2 days to make sure that cashier's check clears the bank before releasing funds, because there have been fraudulent cashier's checks coming through too. So typically wiring is the best option as long as they verbally confirm those wiring instructions, because once they've set up that wire and the funds come through, you're done. So you can fund the same day. If they're bringing a $200,000 cashier's check and that title company chooses to wait 3 days before it clears, then they're waiting 3 days before they can take possession, right? So that's just something you'll want to confirm with your title company. Most of them won't take a personal check for more than $1,500. So some of that goes back to the closing disclosure being able to change a little bit. So their cash to close might go up $250 or go down $250. If they have wired or brought a cashier's check for more than what's on there, title will cut them a check at closing for the difference. If it's not enough, they need to have a check to cover the difference. So I encourage people to just bring a checkbook with them to closing for any of the little stuff that might change. And again, most title companies will accept a personal check up to $1,500. But once it gets beyond that, they want certified funds.
Why do they require you to bring a voided check? Don't you need, or do you usually bring a voided check? Or
That's only if you want stuff wired to you.
okay.
Like some agents choose to have their commissions wired to them. They need a voided check for title because that's where they're getting your routing number and bank account number off of, and the name of your bank and that kind of stuff. If your client wants their proceeds wired to them after closing as opposed to a check, they'll bring a voided check. Again, so title can have their wiring instructions.
So the buyers usually never need to bring one?
No, not a voided check. I just encourage them to bring their checkbook
Just in case.
yeah. So everybody that needs to sign, okay, so buyers and sellers don't sign at the same time in Texas. There are other states where they have to sign at the same time. Texas does not. I don't know if because we like our guns and we don't want chaos going on, or, you know, you don't want a deal to fall apart at the end because the people don't like each other. One thing I've had to say to clients many times, the seller does not convey with the property. And I was like, you know, like the buyer's mad at the seller for whatever reason. Don't worry, the seller doesn't come with the property. Oh, okay, right? So you don't want to battle through a month-long transaction and get to the closing table and you don't like each other for whatever reason. Someone says something stupid. I've had clients, God love them, that just say stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just came out of your mouth. They say something in front of the other person. They're like, never mind, deal's done. You know, so we just don't let it be. Let's keep our personalities, our own personalities. So your client will not, so you can go to the next page that I gave you, the kind of long two-sided one.
Yes.
Yep. So this is what we send out to our clients a week before closing. And again, tweak that. This is not Keller Williams. This is me. Tweak it however you want. I politely stole this from a transaction coordinator I was working with because I was like, "Ooh, I really like all that. That's great." And I, tweaked it how I wanted to. So can anyone? I have one giveaway today. So can you read through this and kind of tell me the first person who can figure out the theme of this gets a prize? More specifically.
Oh.
The theme?
Read the
Nightmare
Midnight.
Before Christmas.
yes. Okay, sorry.
So just a
I was like, what?
suggestion.
Yes.
We have gotten some really nice little files and stuff. Is it possible that people, that maybe you could suggest, since you're on it, my husband would be very happy about this. That's good to know. That maybe some of these more established folks who have little helpful things like this might drop them on the Google Drive.
Yeah.
That might be willing to share. I mean, like examples of, maybe emails they send to clients for X, Y, or Z for
Yeah.
whatever, or, I mean, because these are really helpful. Because I know Cammie gave us some stuff the other day.
I know I came to Cammie's class. I had to leave early, but I came to her class because I wanted to learn from her too. And I wanted to learn from Chrissy too. There's so many great agents that even when you're in here forever, everyone does something different, and it's great to pick up stuff from each person. You're like, I love that you do that. I'm gonna do it.
I
Yes, ma'am.
retyped this from
Yep.
Cammie's, and I'm gonna give it to my sellers,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna put it out at open house.
Yep.
I mean, these,
What
I
was
would
it
have,
that Candy gave us? 'Cause I-
it's just things we like about our house.
She
Remember,
gave
she gave us the thing that said, like the utilities and the cost,
Mhm.
and I
And some of that you
I
can
don't know if
Google.
I got all of those.
Google too and see there's like
There's
readily
tons of
available
stuff
stuff. You're
out
like,
there.
oh, I like how, or even go random, but you can go to Etsy,
Yes.
and there are a lot of vendors on Etsy who will sell like
Oh, I saw
the
mine.
pop by tags that will sell open house stuff, and you send them your logo and they set all of it up and that kind of stuff for you. So there's a lot of resources out there. But yes, I think that's a
But
great
it's
idea
like,
to
I
whoever.
wouldn't have even have thought of this, honestly.
Yeah.
Being so new, I would never have even thought of asking my sellers to, come up with a little thing
What they
to
love about the
Well,
neighborhood and yeah.
promote their house.
And you'll pick up stuff too as you do it, because you'll be, okay, my buyer wants to see this listing, and you go to the transaction desk and that'll be uploaded and you're like, I love that.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff. So yeah, I will talk to the ALC.
By the way, I was gonna suggest also, if you guys wanted to do like a group chat with like things that we learned or fun
Great.
stuff we did, I thought, because I know my brother did Ignite and they all shared their phone numbers, and so it was helpful for like beginners. So if you guys
Yeah.
want after class. getting on
Oh, I love
that,
it.
sure.
You can even do a Facebook page too, if you're all on Facebook, and share stuff on there too. Like when I was in Bold, we set up one of the 5 times I've done Bold, we set up a Facebook page and
Then we
help
can
each
share
other.
documents.
That's what I was
Yeah,
talking about, because
share
if
documents
we find fun
and-
stuff that we're like, oh my god, I didn't know, or if we get a resource that maybe others don't have, we could always share it in the group chat for Facebook or whatever.
And that's one of the things I really love about the KW culture is everybody's willingness to share. Hey, this worked for me, use it, if it works for you. Whereas there are some brokerages where people are very meistic, and I don't want to share this with you because this might give you a leg up to me. There's plenty of business out there, and everybody's going to use it differently, and stuff is going to work for you and it's not going to work for me, and vice versa, and that kind of stuff. So I just like the culture of sharing. Like, yeah, this is stuff that's worked for me, and hey, do what you will. I've sold 20 houses so far this year. But then there's somebody else that's like,
I wish.
this is not me. So, and man, they're like, Cammie killing it with these FISBOs and these. I don't do any of that. My entire business is built off of my sphere and repeat and referrals. Like so far this year, I sold one person who walked into the office real early one morning, and I happened to be the only agent here. And I sat and talked with her and worked with her and sold her house. But everything else has come from repeat clients and sphere referrals and that kind of stuff. So that's just how but then that doesn't work for other people. So you're brand new, just don't try to do everything at once, because then you're not
Yeah.
gonna,
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Trying to do
What's gonna
everything
work?
at once.
then you're
Like,
not gonna, try something for a while and give it time to really work or fail. And then you'll figure out if you love it, or if you're like, hey, this is not for, I don't door knock. And there are agents who are all about door knocking. And I'm like, I don't answer the door for anyone. Why am I gonna go knock on the door, So you just kind of have to figure out what's comfortable for you and what works for you, that kind of stuff. And that comes with time. But anyway, so this is what I send out about a week before closing, reminding people when they're gonna close. Well, in this one, it's asking what time of day they want to, or what time they want to close, right? Talking to them about the walkthrough, what to expect at closing, funding and possession, because you have to remember, again, you're the expert, you do this all the time. They don't realize that, oh, once I sign, I don't get to walk away with the keys, right? That the seller has to sign, the buyer has to sign. If there's a lender involved, it all has to go to the lender for them to release for funding authorization, all that kind of stuff, which can take, depending on the lender. Some are super fast, some table fund, right? And that means the funds are sitting at title already, and all they have to do is get everything signed and review it real fast, and you're done, right? They're not waiting on anything. Some, they're not going to release those, they're not going to send the funds until everything's been reviewed and okayed. So I just kind of set the expectation, hey, it can take 3 to 4 hours to fund. It can definitely happen faster. However, that's just kind of a general rule of thumb. So if I have buyers, I encourage them not to schedule moving and everything the day of closing, right? Because they might not get the keys until 5 o'clock at night in the evening, whatever. Yes.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, for the utility and property insurance, for example, right now I have a client who has a lease back. They're the buyers, and they have a lease back for the seller. So the seller is planning on staying until, I think it's August. We have the lease back until August 10th, but they close on August 5th. But the seller only plans on staying, doesn't really know how long they will actually need to stay. They just wanted it through the weekend, so it ends on Monday. And they're thinking August 6th they'll be out, but we're not sure. So I don't know when exactly they tell them that they need to have the utilities and property insurance.
So property insurance will start the day they close on the property.
Okay.
And at that point, the seller can switch their insurance from whole property coverage to belongings,
Okay.
right? Because your buyer owns that property.
Okay.
So for them to be able to close on that loan, they had to have property insurance on the property,
Okay.
right?
So
So they have whole starting that day,
Gotcha.
right? And then the seller needs to make sure they have insurance for their belongings.
Okay.
As far as utilities, you just kind of have to be flexible on that. The seller needs to keep them in their name, and then just ask that listing agent, hey, as soon as they know what day they plan on being out, let us know. That way we can call and have utilities, because it's less expensive for your buyer to have utilities switched into their name than if the seller turns them off and the buyer has to turn them back on.
Okay. Okay.
So it's usually, if you call them the day before, you can get it worked out. So just ask the listing agent, hey, let me know as soon as the sellers know when they're going to
For
be
sure
out.
when they're gonna be out. Okay.
So I know when we moved last year, they put in the contract that we would purchase renters insurance, because we did a lease back for 5 days, 6 days, whatever, get our stuff out. They put in the contract that we needed to get renters insurance and provide proof of it.
Mhm.
So how is that different than belongings and
Well,
all
it's
that?
the same
Is
as
that
if
the same
you're
thing?
renting an apartment. If the owner of that complex has their own insurance on it.
Okay,
And as a renter, I get renter's insurance, and it's to cover my cost of my belongings. Yeah, it's the
so
same
still
thing.
the same thing, okay.
But they don't want there to be an issue. Worst case scenario, the house burns down, right? Well, the buyer has insurance, and it's gonna cover the house.
But it's not-
That seller has lost all their belongings, so who are they gonna go after?
Yes.
The buyer,
And is it
even
the
though it's not their fault.
Is the listing agent or the buyer's agent's job to tell the seller to have that insurance for their belongings?
Well, so in her case, they required it as part of the contract. I haven't seen that before, but it makes
was like they were
sense.
contractors somehow, I think it might have been.
They probably wrote it in special provision,
Yeah,
special
special
provisions or
provision or
something,
something.
yeah. Which is an interesting concept. So if you have the seller,
Mhm.
encourage your seller.
Okay, I have the buyer.
So you might mention it to the listing agent, hey, I just want to make sure you've already let your client know that they need to have personal property insurance for the lease back.
I think it was like $20.
It's super
Yeah,
cheap.
because they're only really thinking about staying, because they have it until, like I said, until the 10th, but I think they really only need 1 day at most.
But it's still like,
Yeah, it's worth it just in case.
it would be that one day when that house would burn down and you're like, for $20, I could have had, $75,000 worth of, personal belongings replaced and stuff. So you, unless it's written in like that, which I hadn't seen that before, but you can't force the seller to get that coverage, but it's just something to mention. Because again, we're doing transaction management. That listing agent might not even know or think to tell their seller to have that kind of coverage. So it doesn't hurt to, and you're very kind how you come across. So like, I'm very dry where I have to reread emails like, wow, I sounded like a beep, let me reword this. Not much better face to face than I
I'm
am.
the one that reads it, I'm like, oh my God, we're doing that.
Yeah. Probably an email from me, sorry. So you come across very nicely. So I know when you mention that to him, it's going to come across pleasantly. If you're a little more cold like I am in emails, like not as a person, I'm not a cold person,
Honest.
blunt, dry. Then just make sure you're rereading stuff to how it comes across can be crass. But anyway, yes, it's a good idea to say, hey, you want to make sure they know it's a great idea to have whatever, personal property coverage.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody has signed, everybody on the contract and on the loan has come to closing. They have brought their typically driver's license. You can also use a passport as long as it's a government issued photo ID. In Texas, it's a community property state. So even if one person, like we just bought a house, I was the only person on the loan because my husband is a homemaker. He still had to come and sign because community property state, he owns half of it. So I signed everything that had to do with loan documents and everything, lender related, and then he still had to sign the deed of trust. So even if one person's on the contract, if they're married, they both need to be at closing to sign. They'll have like 3 documents to sign and you have 100, but anyway, just, know that has to happen. Everyone is signed, everything is sent to the lender, lo and behold, everyone signed correctly and the loan funds, right? If you have the buyer and there's a lease back, your buyer still gets a key the day of closing.
Okay.
They own that property,
Okay.
right? Just like a landlord has a key to their properties. Your client is a landlord. They get a key to that property the day it closes. They don't get to just show up at the property whenever they want, right? But they own it, so they get to have a key. If there's not a lease back, then even easier, they get a key. And then typically all the rest of the keys and garage remotes, if there are any, and that kind of stuff are left in the kitchen. You look like you're about to ask a question. Oh, okay.
I
Yes.
had a question. If the leaseback ends early, can they go in even though like the leaseback is until the 10th, like, and they get out? Like,
Yes.
6 or 7
So
months?
it's great. And that happens a lot. I've had 2 in the last 2 months that have ended early. Have it in writing.
Okay.
Like I don't know, there might be
Email?
something, a document that you're supposed to, I've never have, quite honestly, but we've done it in an email, lots of text conversations with other agents that they're texting, just shoot an email, hey, per our text conversation, my buyers are,
Depending on.
taking possession of the state and time, whatever. So just so there's not any, something comes back later and bites you in the butt for, hey, we still have that lease back, but usually everybody's super amicable at that point, and yeah. So, so that's it for that. So the instructor quickly described the contract to close process. I think that took like an hour. There was nothing quick about that. It's okay. It was all the really good questions, and quite frankly, it went over a lot of the stuff we are already gonna go over.
I have one more question.
Yes.
So I'm closing on the house that I just told you guys about, and I have never been to a closing before. My brother's gonna come with me, but I've never been to a closing before, and I don't know how I need to prepare for that closing. Like, what do I, like, is there anything that I need to like?
So, you are going to, some lenders will send you the closing disclosure ahead of time and some won't,
Okay.
because they don't have to send it to the agent anymore, which I think is a load of hooey. Because you as the agent, again, you're the professional, you see these all the time, you will see them all the time. You're gonna be able to look and see errors, and they might not necessarily catch errors. Lenders are great and I'll send them to you, and some don't. Some will just send it to the client, but it's always a good idea to review that closing disclosure ahead of time. And do it with a more experienced agent, so we can go through and say, and anyone, ALC, anybody will are happy to sit with y'all and go over that kind of stuff. But you're gonna go line by line and make sure if you have the buyer, that their earnest funds credited, their option fees credited, whoever's supposed to pay for the owner's title policy, and it's always written weird where there are credits and debits and that kind of stuff, so it causes confusion with the clients. One good thing is typically if they're working with a good lender, the lender has gone over it with them and answered questions. However, it's a good idea for you to have reviewed it and make sure, because one really important step that a lot of agents, not a lot, some agents will forget, if I have the buyer and there are amendments drawn up for whatever reason, the only thing I don't send to the lender are repair amendments. The lender doesn't need to see a repair amendment. It's just going to cause issues in underwriting, because then the underwriter gets to see it. So like if I have something where we're reducing the sales price and they're agreeing to repairs, I'm putting that on 2 different amendments, even when it's done at the same time, because the price reduction has to go to the lender. I don't want that lender to see those repairs. Okay. So there are some agents who will forget to send certain amendments to the lender. And then at closing, you're like, ooh, there was supposed to be a $2,000 credit from the seller to the buyer that's not on here. Well, that's because the lender or title were never sent that amendment. So make sure every amendment that has to do with date changes or money changes go to lender and title.
And repairs don't have to be sent to them?
No. And so as long as they're on, that's why I always do them on 2. It's still a legal document. Just because you didn't send it to the lender doesn't mean it's any less enforceable, but it's keeping that underwriter from seeing it going, ooh, because then they're gonna go, well, we want to see the repair receipts, we want it re-inspected, we want blah, 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 blah. Like it just opens up a can of worms where you're gonna deal with that anyway, but it's not to appease an underwriter, it's to protect your client. So I also don't send the seller's disclosure to the lender because they don't need that either.
So do 2 amendments if there's a price adjustment or a date change and a repair. So the repair would be its own amendment, and the price adjustment and or date change would be its own price.
Correct.
Or own amendment.
Correct. So like when you're doing an amendment, you can choose every single box on there if you need, which would be super weird. But if there are several things on there that need to change, you can do one amendment. Again, I just always, anything repair related, I pull into its own amendment. So like if you're shortening the option period and you're doing a price adjustment and blah, 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 that can all go on the same. Just keep those repairs to yourself.
Okay.
Between you and the other agent. So sorry.
Yeah.
Hello, squirrel. So review that closing disclosure to make sure credit, debits, charges, everything's in the right spot. And then, so there are a few things I tell my buyers at closing, right? Seller closings are super quick. They're about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on what title company you work with and how quickly that escrow agent closes stuff, because they don't have much to sign. So for those, I show up, hey, super excited for you, and make sure you bring the extra keys if they're, like if they're giving up possession that day. That's pretty much it. And then for buyers, kind of lost my train of thought.
The things that you tell them.
Yes, the things that, thank you. I'm not drinking my coffee fast enough. The things that I go over with them at closing, they're going to say, hey, you're going to get all sorts of junk mail in the next 6 months, because the fact that the property sold is public record. Okay. But Texas is a non-disclosure state. So what you sold this property for is not public record. So when Denton County sends you a letter asking what the sales price of your contract was, throw it away. You do not have to disclose it. All they're gonna do is raise your property taxes to that amount.
So
It's-
it's still gonna be the MLS, right? The email.
Correct. And that's where there's currently lawsuits with Denton County because they have people in the appraisal district with MLS access and are pulling sales prices and they're not supposed to. So that's a whole other thing that's going on right now, but this is my go-to spiel. It is in MLS, but it's not public record unless one of the agents is blank enough to go into like Zillow and put the sales price in there. They really should not be doing that because again, Texas is a non-disclosure state, but somebody could mess up that way. However, I tell people you're gonna get a letter and it's official. It's actually from Denton County wanting that sales price, just throw it away, non-disclosure state. You're also gonna get all sorts of junk mail, offering to file stuff for you. Everything's been filed for you. The only thing that hasn't been done yet is your homestead exemption, unless this is an investor, right? So this is where I'm setting up my next touch with my client. Well, not next, because it could be a year from now, but the only thing that you have to file is your homestead exemption. I'm gonna reach out to you in January to remind you to file that homestead exemption. You have to live in the property on January 1st to qualify for that exemption. However, you only have to file it once. So January of next year, I'm gonna reach out to you, remind you to file it. Super easy. That's more of the junk mail you're gonna get, offering to file it for you for 85 bucks. It's one page that you take to Denton County tax district, or you can mail it to them. And you just have to do it one time and it stays with the property as long as you own it. And so that's another touch for all of my clients in January. Hey, I hope everything's been great. You had a great holiday, blah, blah. I just want to remind you to file your homestead exemption. This is the website for the, county that you purchased in. Here's the homestead exemption form.
So
They-
would you just go on to Denton County?
What?
Would you just go on to Denton County and get that
Mhm.
homestead?
If they purchased in Denton County. The one thing they have to know is the correct address has to be on their driver's license. So they do need to update their driver's license before then to be able to do the homestead exemption. So anyway, I tell them you're gonna get all sorts of junk mail, throw it all away. Everything's been filed for you with the exception of that one thing. If something comes in the mail that looks super official and you don't know whether or not to believe it, reach out to me, reach out to the lender. One of us is gonna be able to tell you if it's trash or if it's something to look into. So that's my little go-to spiel that I kind of slide in the middle of closings.
So my sellers want out of Dodge, like now. How soon after they've accepted a contract or accepted an offer can they sign to leave?
So they can't sign till closing date.
Okay.
If they can sign remotely, if they move to if they go to Colorado next week, all you have to do, just know that you need to set it up the day before closing, because they need to sign the day before, then they'll overnight the originals, and title needs the originals to be able to fund,
So.
right? So if they close the day of closing, it won't fund till the next day. So
So I'm sorry, piggyback on that question. I have one seller that will be gone, one that will stay here. So we'll need to have it overnighted. So he can sign it, the husband can sign it, because he's moving for work and she's gonna stay here for a little bit. So we'll need to have him sign it, then overnight it back, and then she can sign it in person.
And so title will want the originals to be able to issue funding. And the title office you work with will be great about reaching out. Okay, they're gonna be in Aurora. Well, they're gonna reach out to a title company in Aurora and say, hey, I need a mobile notary. Who do you work with? They'll get somebody, they'll hire them out. They'll email that notary all of the documents. The notary will print all the documents out. The client will sign in front of the notary, and then the notary will FedEx the documents back to title. So, and it's good to let title know that early on. That way they can get all that set up, and that expectation to the can be set to the lender too, that, hey, we need docs ready the day before closing for us to be able to fund the date of closing. So yeah, they can leave. I'd be leaving too. Bye. Texas in August.
Yeah, they would, they'd like to leave like today.
So they can do it remotely. I've had people sign everywhere, so super easy.
So after you give them your spiel about the junk mail, anything else that we should be doing at closing?
Are you getting him a gift?
Yes,
What are you getting him?
I have no idea yet.
Okay,
Mine's
so
getting a gift certificate to something in Grand Junction.
I was trying to figure that
That's
out. Do you have any ideas for good closing gifts?
so I'll show y'all some of the stuff that I do. And so there are some agents, one that you'll talk to that don't do any closing gifts. They're like, no, their doctor give you a closing gift? Well, whatever. I have to go back to my doctor. I don't have to go back to my realtor, right? So
I think it's rude when they don't. I have realized.
See, I'm very
I
like-
didn't use her when I bought my next house.
can you,
My mom's always doing it. That's
Yeah.
why I'm like, okay.
anyway, and that's my love language anyway, is gifts. So
Yeah.
like, I love, sure, have some paydays. Like, what can I give you? Right? I see something, oh my gosh, she would love this. I'm gonna get this for her. So I don't do the exact same thing every time. I kind of tweak stuff to the client themselves. So like last year I had first time home buyers who bought a house that needed some cleaning done to it, right? So like I gave them, and one nice thing is when you do branded things, they're marketing write-offs versus closing gift write-offs. Because closing gifts, you're limited to the amount you can spend, which don't go blow the bank on your closing gifts, right? Make them memorable and that kind of stuff, but you got to keep your numbers in line, right? But like when I give stuff like this bag that has Douglas Realty embroidered on it, like, so this is a marketing expense. And then like I filled it with paper towels and cleaning supplies and that kind of, hand soap and stuff that you move in and you're like, crap, where's all my stuff that's all packed away? Fill it with liquor, fill it with food. Do they have kids? And moving day is gonna suck because their kids are crazy. Fill it with snack foods and that kind of stuff. So this is one thing that I've done that I really like. And then it's this is a 31 brand. I love their bags. So this is something they're gonna use too. Like I have a teacher client who closed a month ago and gave her this, and this is her new work bag. Well, hey, this is in front of people's faces every day, and she's one of my raving fans now. So anyway, so I like this. If somebody is moving here from another state, I like to give Texas themed gifts because Texas loves Texas.
Yeah, I was gonna do something like that. 'Cause there's like a farmer's market in Dallas that has a ton of cool stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and like Lucky's has a ton of stuff like this that's Texas themed. They have, I just gave somebody who moved from North Carolina, I gave them a Texas shaped cutting board I got from Buc-ee's. And then I have Cutco knives that have,
Those are nice. Our realtor gave us one of those when we sold them back home, and
They're
those are great knives.
they're not cheap. They have a lifetime guarantee. So like if they break or become dull, they can get them fixed, right? And it has fixed free of charge, and it has,
And they're sharp, they will cut you.
oh my goodness, I have sliced the crap out of my hand before. So it says, so it's got my team logo on it, and it says your realtor for life, Rebecca Douglas, and my phone number, right? So they're Cutco. I can give you my Cutco rep.
Okay.
They offer deals all the time. Like I have like 15 of these in my cabinet right now, and as closings happen, I just pull them out and give them to people. It's a marketing expense. It's not a closing gift expense. So I don't have to stay under the $50 mark. This is like $100 or something like that. They have gifts from like 80 to like 150 depending on what you want to do, because they have scissors and all kinds of stuff.
Is it embroidered? Does that come within the charge of the 100 or 80 or
Yeah.
whatever? Okay.
And they set up payment plans and however you want to do it. Although I'm not an advocate of like going into debt to start your business, but this kind of stuff is, again, I have a cabinet full, so closing day, I just pull it out and it's all a marketing expense since it has it on there. And I'll tell you what, so we kept one of these for ourselves. My husband uses it every single day. Like if I don't wash this every night, he's like, next morning, he's like, where's the knife? So this is in front of your client every day.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah. So
How long do they take to get here? Like whenever you order them?
when's your closing? August
August 5th.
5th?
Next week.
It probably won't get here in time. I'll give you, her name's Chelsea Banks.
Okay.
I'll give you her information. You can reach out and see.
I know we bought our Darrell Horton home, it came with a cutting board and it had their logo on it, and it's the perfect size for like vegetables, and I use it every day.
There
It's a
are,
wood-
I
It's a nice wooden one.
Yeah, I love to shop locally when I can. There are some really great vendors who make custom cutting boards that will put your logo right on there. And again, that's a marketing expense. That's not your gift thing. So you can write off 100% of this versus a lot less for a closing gift.
I saw some on Etsy that were nice, but they didn't include like the logo, they just said like.
Yeah, and well, you're gonna pay a lot for shipping, which I love Etsy because most of it's small business and I shop from there all the time, but you'll be able to like go onto a mom's page or whatever and say, hey, I'm looking for a local vendor that does this. And you'll have 15 different recommendations. Go to their pages and look at their work and work with somebody local. You're supporting local. You can usually get it last minute if you need to. You can, order a chunk of them and keep them
Yeah.
to be ready and that kind of stuff. So, and then you're building a relationship. So it's funny how many realtors will like work with a vendor over and over and over and never ask for business back. And I've listed an inspector's house just because I asked them for business. And so he works with, a bajillion realtors, but nobody thinks to ask. So build a relationship with a local vendor. And they're gonna, be friendly with them and that kind of stuff. And then they're gonna think of you if somebody needs a realtor. Hey, do you mind keeping me in mind if you ever hear of somebody that needs a realtor, that kind of stuff. And then I love to refer good vendors out. Like you'll see me all the time on Facebook that somebody's like, I need a good painter. Whoa, Michael Lopez. You cannot go wrong with him, blah, blah, blah. And then they turn around and maybe they'll use you themselves or maybe they'll refer you, or it's just also nice just to be a nice person. But
So where is it again that you find local vendors?
so I go to like moms pages and stuff like Denton Moms or something like that and say, hey, and I'm on like a Frisco one and something else. And sometimes I'll even just ask on my personal page too. Like, hey, does anybody know somebody who does this?
Okay.
Ask in our office page.
Kelly Williams, okay.
Because I guarantee there's somebody in this office that's using a local vendor
Yeah, true.
that does this. And you can also just like search Facebook. But I like to see personal recommendations, people who have.
Yeah.
So on Facebook, if you look up the Red Table, it's a women's entrepreneur group,
Okay.
and they have all kinds of local vendors. Like they've got one, it's called 1865 Candle Company, and I think they're all local.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
But they've got different stuff, and it's all women-run
I love that.
small businesses. Yeah.
I'll look it up. My brother's also done tiles before, and he likes that, like, just like little tiles, and he puts like the Reyes Realty, like a sticker or something on it. You know, the tiles that you put, like, you put around your keys, like,
Yes.
you lose your keys if you, so he's done that, and they really like it, but that's just not
Do you guys order your stickers like from somewhere?
I don't know.
You can go, God, where is that from? Because I order stickers. There's a
See, these
dom-
are
I
pretty
can
easy to
ask
put
her-
on Google
the
Drive,
donkey
the
is their
ideas of where
logo.
to buy stuff.
I can ask my brother too where he gets his stuff.
Somebody had the idea, this is completely not real estate related. I'm taking my kids to Disney World in October, and somebody had the idea to get those tile things and put them on your kid's shoelace.
That's a really good idea.
So if your kid gets separated from you in Disney World, you can find them on that tile. Or if somebody takes the kid, they're not gonna think to look at their shoe
Yeah,
for those little tiles.
that's a good
And
idea.
ordering the crap.
I'm
I was
glad
like,
you
that is
don't do
genius.
this.
Why are,
That's
okay.
a great idea.
People are so much, I love to use other people. People are smart.
Yeah,
Like,
oh, I do
who
that all
didn't
the
think
time.
of that? That's so cool. Anyway, like I said, not real estate related at all, but
That's a good idea.
track your kid.
I know, I
Put a
asked
tracking
my
device
kids to
on.
microchip my children.
Yeah. Okay, so your last little thing you got, so full disclosure, I have not implemented this yet, but I love it. Denise Donahue was a lender I worked with. I actually just purchased my personal home with her. And she sends this email out after closing. Hey, congratulations. Now you're part of, she's branded herself as the mortgage nerd. So now you're part of the nerd club. She does videos once a month that goes out to everybody, and she'll do a drawing at the end of it to give a gift card. Like I do client events, I do pop buys, I do, all that. Cause again, my whole business is my sphere. So that's how I take care of them. They're like, hey, you're part of this. And P.S., do you mind going to Google and leaving me a 5-star review? And puts the link directly to, well, she did Zillow, but now the algorithms have changed. And literally in the last 5 days, she's sending out emails, changing it to Google. But anyway, click here to leave a 5-star review. I'm not good about asking for reviews, and I need to be better. So that's something I've tasked my admin I just hired with. Actually, when I printed these out for y'all, I printed one out for her and put a sticky note and put it on her desk. I was like, hey, we need to do this for our clients. So this is part of that. Put it at the bottom of your checklist, send out the congratulations email at the end asking for a review. I would say the one time not to do it if it was like a crap show of a transaction, even if it wasn't your fault, they might
They're like,
not put the nicest things on there, but that happens sometimes. But anyway, so that's the final little email I would recommend sending out. And some agents are bold enough to ask. You'll hear all the scripts, and so while you're here, who do you know, right? Like you're at the closing table. Who do you know that's looking to buy or sell, blah blah. That's not me.
I don't feel comfortable asking at the closing table because
Yeah.
you're supposed to be celebrating their victory.
Yeah, you already
and
looked
I'm
for the
not
next
gonna
Well,
do it.
and there are agents that will ask every step of the way, like every milestone they hit. Again, that's
Yeah, that's like car salesman.
not how I choose to run my business, but I'm not insulting anyone that might do that. Whoever's watching on this recorded video. I love you. Okay, so do y'all need a break? Do y'all need to use the restroom, grab something to drink,
Can I
eat a
ask you a
payday?
quick question?
Ask-
Totally off topic.
Ask away.
On this listing, it's asking for, on MLS for the loan type. It won't let me submit it without putting the loan type, like assumable non-qualifying, assumable
Treat
qualifying.
as clear.
Treat as clear, okay, thank you. That was the only thing it was.
So there are some loans that are assumable, and if somebody bought a house last year or 2 years ago and they got a kick A rate, right? Say it was a VA loan, they got 2.25, okay? And it's an assumable loan. When they go to sell, they have to be able to qualify for that loan. It has to be another VA buyer. However, they can assume that loan and get that low rate. So it can be something that's, hey, this is a great thing to offer. However, we're not really in the market for it. You'll see it maybe more if interest rates go up real high or something. So, but yeah, most of yours are going to be treated as clear.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So if you buy a house with VA loan,
Mhm.
when you sell it, it should be bought with another VA loan.
No, that was if somebody's trying to assume that first loan. No, when you buy with the VA loan, the next person that buys it, anybody can buy it. Now, if they're buying it, if they bought it with a VA loan, it was their primary residence, and they're buying another primary residence with a VA loan and are keeping this as an investment property, the first one, they have to refinance it to get it out of VA, because you can only have one primary residence VA loan at a time. So, okay. Systems equals success. It's essential to have systems in place for pre-close, closing, and post-close. Because as y'all can see, there are 1,000 moving parts. It kind of changes every time. And you can get into the routine of spending so much time babysitting a contract that you're not getting other business. The first time I hired a transaction to close coordinator was 5 or 6 years ago, and I had 5 closings in June and then 1 in July, and I was like, what the heck did I do? And I realized I spent all of June taking care of those 5 contracts instead of going out and looking for other business. So your months will be like this, you know, like you'll have a great month and then a crappy one, then a great one and a crappy month. So having these systems in place and checklists and stuff will streamline this and make it where you're not having to spend a lot of time fumbling through all this. You're just looking at your checklist for every contract every day. Where are we in the timeline? Boom, that's done. And you can do your lead gen. Well, do your lead gen first and then check your checklist and that kind of stuff. So it's really nice to have everything in place so you're not having to, yes,
Sorry.
you're fine.
What's a good system that you have in place right now that you like currently?
I hired somebody. So I know my strengths. This is not my strength.
Okay.
Having systems and checklists, not my strength. When I was my first year in real estate, I was an unlicensed assistant for my stepmom, and I had no real estate experience whatsoever. I was a stay-at-home mom, well, newly stay-at-home mom. I used to do finances and inventory for bookstores, but she would tell me to do something, and I'm like, I don't know what that word means. She's like, look for this and do this. I'm like, none of that makes sense. I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, not a good hire. And even my KPA says I shouldn't have been a buyer's agent, but I was rookie of the year and top buyer's agent. Like, so KPA is fantastic, but it's not the gospel, right? It just means I love it because it tells you where your strengths and weaknesses are. So I know this is not my strength. So and Keller Williams will tell you this anyway, your very first hire should be an admin, and then your second hire should be an admin. And then your third hire is when you start looking at maybe buyer's agent or that other kind of stuff. So I'm a little scattered and I'm a people person. I like to be out doing stuff. So having to sit and work through all this stuff, I'm like, oh crap. You know, I don't want to go, oh crap, all the time through transactions. So I have somebody that does it, and she is fantastic at building systems and following them and implementing, and she does all that. So what I would say to you, and because y'all don't need to hire people yet, is figure out your checklist and look in Command also. There should be, and just Google it. You can, well, be careful with the Google part. Ask other agents, ask around, that kind of stuff. Find a checklist that you like, build a checklist from, 5 other checklists, and then just have this in place. And again, however you want to track your dates. I need to look it up, make a note to remind me. There was an agent I just did a deal with. It was his first deal. But he used a program that was really neat that emailed both of us when there were deadlines coming up. So remind me to look it up because I don't remember the name of it, but I'll send it to y'all. So anyway, you just kind of have to figure out what'll work best for y'all. I really liked early on, like I said, when we had stuff printed out and I had a printed checklist, and I would open a folder and say, oh, okay, in 2 days, this is coming up. Let me reach out to this person, that kind of thing. So
I think Tori gave us one yesterday, which
Nice.
was really good, but
cool.
yeah, just wanted to see.
Yeah, so that's, I know where I'm weak, and that is where I am weak. So I made a really smart first hire. That's what I did. Yeah, so you've got your checklist, following up regularly. Again, don't count on the buyer's agent to be following up with the lender if you're not hearing from anybody. Some lenders are great and will send you updates every Wednesday or every Friday. Send them to everybody and you're like, cool, I know what's going on. Or they'll send you an update every milestone that's hit. But most of them aren't that organized or, I don't know, friendly. So it's okay to reach out to, I like to reach out to the agent first because I don't want them to feel like I'm going around them or whatever, but I'll say, hey, I just want to make sure everything's on track still and blah, blah, blah. If they don't respond the next day, I might reach out to the lender. Hey, I just want to make sure everything's on track, blah, blah. So obviously I'm not asking for any financial personal information from the lender about the buyer. It's not my business if I'm the listing agent. However, most lenders, with the exception of the one I just worked with last week, are super nice and will tell you, hey, yeah, everything's great. Or we had 2 things come back and it's been resubmitted to underwriting or whatever. So they'll tell you what's going on. So just make sure you're following up. Follow up with title. If nobody else will respond to you, people the lender has to respond to title, right? So that's one thing I did with this really bad lender is got title in the middle of it. Hey, title, what have you heard from the lender? Because they weren't responding to anybody else. The buyer, they weren't responding to anybody. But the lender could get them to, or the title could get them to respond. So just know it's okay to seek other avenues to follow up. Because again, even though if you're the listing agent and that's not your buyer, you still want it to close for your listing agent, for your sellers. There's a lot of back and forth in my brain right now. Anyway, so
Oh, look at that. Topic of closed check.
boom. Yeah, so in here are two, the listing agent contract to close and buyer's agent contract to close. There, some things I don't necessarily agree with. Okay, so. So one thing I highlighted on here to make sure, so on your buyer's agent contract to close, that second one, deliver earnest money to listing agent. Earnest money doesn't go to listing agent. Earnest money goes to title. And I made a note, must be on time. So please make sure, and now it's, and some of this you can tell it's just because contracts have changed since this was written. But now it's earnest and option are delivered at once to title. And again, it must be on time. So the day you go under contract is day 0, the day it's executed. It's day 0, and then it starts your countdown. Where this says to schedule the inspections, I don't schedule my clients' inspections. One, it needs to be when they can attend, and I don't want to have to do a bunch of back and forth between an inspector and a client. 2, I feel like that's taken on liability that is unnecessary because
Present when they do that, or do you?
I attend the review
Okay.
at the end. Now, again, you'll hear some people say they don't even attend the inspection. I like to know what that inspector is saying. So I don't give advice then. I step back and I listen, but I want to know what that inspector told my client. That way, when they turn around, because the inspector most of them do a really good job of explaining what it is, and then the buyer gets the report and they're like, what the heck? Sounds a lot scarier in the report because they're bound by TREC also, and so they have to put all this extra verbiage in there that sounds scary. So anyway, like y'all have in this email, I tell them to schedule their own inspection, because then also that inspector is going to say, do you want a termite inspection? Do you want blah, 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 all these other add-ons. So that's going to be up to them. And they usually pay at that same time too. So even though this says the agent should schedule it, I don't. I make my client schedule it. So also on here, the schedule survey title orders the survey. And we kind of already talked about that paragraph in the contract now, making sure you're following that timeline for your sellers. Schedule the appraisal. The lender schedules the appraisal. It's good to, and within 10 days of loan application, that's different. So that is, they're used to, our option periods used to be 10 days. Way back when they were 10 days. So that's probably what that was referring to, but you don't schedule the appraisal. However, you should be following up with the lender at the end of the option period to confirm it's been scheduled. And I personally like to ask when the due date is, like when are you expected to have it back? Again, unless you're working with Keller Mortgage, they do it on day 1. Love Keller Mortgage. Also, it's also, just side note, outside of your contract close, for marketing pieces, look in Command Design. There are really good marketing pieces highlighting Keller Mortgage. Have y'all talked about Keller Mortgage? No. See, y'all have no idea why I keep chiming in about Keller Mortgage.
Well, it's a lender, right?
Yes. So several years ago, Gary Keller bought a mortgage company. They're in Ohio. It's called Keller Mortgage, and it hasn't rolled out in all 50 states yet. Texas was early adopter. And So there are all these benefits for a buyer to use Keller Mortgage. They get like $1,000 back at closing. The lender pays for the appraisal. There's like 2 other things. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. However, there are marketing pieces designed for you to put it out there and say, hey, look at this great deal. You can get, it's a 0 fee. It's called a 0+ fee loan or something like that. It's just, they're regular mortgage lenders, right? Like you would go to Fairway, and get a lender. It's the same thing here. But they don't charge the traditional fees that traditional mortgage companies charge, because they're not, so your lender makes money off of the fees that they charge and the interest rate and that kind of stuff. Well, they're just paid a typical salary, probably with bonuses or something. So they don't add on all those extra fees, and they give you money back at closing, and they pay for your appraisal. So if you go everyone open up your app, your Keller Williams personal app, because I know you have it on your phone.
I actually went, because I was going to buy a house last year during COVID. I ended up not buying it.
Oh,
I know, but I went through everything, and I used Keller Mortgage, and since I was a new home buyer or whatever, I think they were gonna pay for all my closing costs for the that I
Yeah,
did.
we used
So-
Keller Mortgage, and we were just looking for something to help with, we didn't qualify for any of the down payment assistance or anything.
Yeah.
But our agent told us, oh, what about Keller Mortgage? They help pay with the closing costs.
So it's awesome.
It was. I mean, it was a good experience for us.
So if you just pull up a house, right? Pull up a listing, and it'll tell you on there, and this is for your clients too that have your app downloaded. Like under your picture, save up to so just for record, this one's an $800,000 house. Save up to $5,760 on your next home loan, right? And that's if they use Keller Mortgage. And so then they can just click on that, and they can it tells them why.
Yeah, no problem.
And then they can actually start their loan application right here in the middle of your app. And you start getting notifications, hey, so-and-so just started their loan process. You're like, cool, they're actually ready to, somebody who's just been looking for a while, hey, they're ready to move forward with something. And then so it lets you know you need to reach out to them. And then the cool thing is you can put that in, market it for your listings too, because there just has to be a Keller Williams agent in the transaction. So if somebody is buying my listing but the other agent's from Eddie, well, that buyer can still use Keller Mortgage because it's a Keller Williams listing. So I'm promoting that too. You'll see there are agents who have it written in their listing. They have it on their marketing pieces. I think you can buy yard signs to put it out there, ask about 0+ loans. You're marketing at your open houses. Have those go into Command and look at the design pieces, and have those flyers out there too, because that could help you pick up a client. Oh, cool, I could save $6,000 by working with you. And hey, quit asking for my commission that I earned. Save through your mortgage, save through the loan. So anyway, that's hilarious that it hasn't been brought up yet, so I apologize that I kept just harping on Keller Mortgage, and y'all are like, hey, cool. Anyway, look it up. So your final walkthrough with your buyer is important. The repairs that are negotiated, thankfully several years ago the contract changed, and it actually states now that the repairs have to be done by somebody licensed or actively practicing in that field. Didn't used to, and then you'd have somebody do their home fixes that weren't really a fix, and so now it actually says in there that it has to be somebody that's licensed, which is great. Ask for receipts. Make sure you have, that's another thing on your checklist. Make sure you have, I like to have repair receipts 3 to 5 days before closing, something like that. Because you want to make sure all the negotiated repairs have been done. And, if there are bigger items, the buyer can choose to have the property re-inspected, like those few items, and most inspectors will charge a much lower re-inspect fee, where they'll come out and check, if it was HVAC or whatever, they can come double check that those things were actually done. And then you definitely want to do a final walkthrough. If your buyer chooses not to, there's actually a document you can have them sign. So your final walkthrough should not take very long. It is done to ensure the condition of the property hasn't changed since they've gone under contract. It hasn't flooded or, you know, somebody busted a window or whatever. So, and you can like visually inspect some repairs. There are some obviously that we can't tell with our naked eye. And again, it's up to the buyer if they want to choose to have it re-inspected or just trust the receipts. Maybe if it was done, the repair was done by a really reputable company, they're okay with it. But if it was handwritten on a napkin, you know, maybe don't accept that as a repair receipt.
When do you usually schedule the final walkthrough?
So typically the day before closing.
But like, how far out do you usually?
Just a few days out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not something to, again, if there's a bigger thing that they're wanting re-inspected, I would give yourself a little more padding on that, like maybe 5 days to a week. Get that scheduled for the re-inspect, but then I would still want to do a final walkthrough day before or day of closing.
And then the closing, does the buyer's agent usually request like closing, like we already have the date, but like the time when
Yeah.
it's supposed to be scheduled?
So that's in your little email here. We're scheduled to close on Monday, October 31st, underlying time. Please let us know your preferred closing time.
Okay,
So I like to remind my clients that close the earlier, and I think it's on the end of that email too, because it says, hey, yeah, again, please let us know your preferred closing time for the 31st. The earlier in the day, the better for funding purposes. Like last week I had a buyer, so I had the listing with the Nightmare Lender, and we signed in the morning, but the buyer wasn't signing until 3 p.m. And so I said, hey, just so y'all know, don't expect this to fund today. Because, you know, the buyer is going to take 45 minutes to close and send it all to the lender. And most wire cutoffs 4 p.m. Some even do 3 p.m., that kind of stuff. So I encourage people to, if they're available, sign in the morning. So it'll fund the same day. Now it can fund and then not release commissions, and the client can still take possession. So anyway, it's up to you. Reach out to your client, say, hey, what time of day would work best for you? I recommend morning to midday.
Okay.
And then whatever they say, reach out to the title, say, hey, what do you have available around 10 o'clock or, you know, whatever time the client chooses, and that's it. Some lenders will take the ball on that, but I like to try to be the one that does it if possible. You'll also, don't be surprised if you run into a title company who won't allow you to schedule that closing until they've received the clear to close or closing instructions or something like that. It's really frustrating when they do that, but there are definitely some who won't, because they don't want to take up closing times if it doesn't end up closing on that day. So if you're reaching out a week before, some title companies are going to let you and some aren't.
but you can go straight to the title company, or do you need to talk to the lender before you talk to the title company?
Straight to the title company, but there are some title companies who won't
Okay.
schedule it.
Okay.
Very few. I just throw that out there so you're not surprised if someone's like, no, we're not going to schedule it yet because we haven't received instructions or whatever. So anyway, it's a good idea if possible for your buyer to take off that day of closing. If they can't, again, I mean, most title companies are good about working around times and stuff. So anyway, and on here, have client review closing disclosure for accuracy. They don't see closing disclosures all the time, so they're not going to necessarily understand it. So the lender can explain it to them. It's also a good idea for the agent to review it and that kind of stuff. And then also at closing, the title company will say, hey, do you want to go over this, or are you good to just sign it? So then it'll be up to your client at that point if they want them to explain the line items or if they're just going to sign. You'll have some clients who want to every document explained. You'll have some who want the documents sent to them the day before to review before they sign, and that's fine. You know, it's just working with different personality types. You just have to be prepared for it. Just know, besides correcting errors on the closing disclosure, all of those documents, none of them are going to change. Even if the buyer doesn't like the wording, these have been drawn up by attorneys. That lender doesn't care. You don't wanna sign it, you don't get the loan. You know, title company doesn't care. You don't wanna sign it, we're not gonna, you know, close this deal, so. But some people just like to, that's their personality type, they like to be able to read through all of it. If they're gonna read through all of it, they need to do it the day before, not during that 1 hour block of time that title is set aside for them.
When we go through closing, the title company is going to explain the paperwork to them, right? Okay.
Yep.
So we're-
You're more of a
Just-
sit and smile,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
Um,
Like to hear that.
Maybe bring coffee.
Huh?
I said maybe bring coffee.
Yeah, you're a coffee drinker.
I was worried that I would have to do some kind of.
No. And you'll get to the point where you know what they're gonna tell you over and over, but no, title is the one taking the lead on that. You sit back and hopefully you have a good escrow agent who's gonna flip the document over, say, this is telling you, you know, the lender hold harmless for title. We have not inspected this property. Blah, blah, blah. You know, that kind of stuff. And so they'll go through everything and they're not gonna read the whole line, but they're gonna tell you, this is what this one says that they're signing. This is your loan application. Just review that the social security number is correct and sign here. That's it. And you just sit back and listen.
You've done the hard part. You're just sitting there as moral support.
Ooh, there's also another fun closing gift idea. So my friend Nicole has a cake pop business. So it's called Big Top Cake Pops.
Uh-huh.
Amazingly delicious and so cute. And she can make like, so obviously my logo thing is a pineapple, right? It's a symbol for hospitality and other things. For me, it's a symbol for hospitality, right? So like I have a closing coming up in August where she's gonna make cake pops in the shapes of houses,
Oh, that's so cute.
and pineapples, and then I think just turquoise regular cake pop balls or whatever, because my client loves turquoise. And so they look really good, and so they can customize. So that's a fun thing too, even if maybe they have kids or whatever, have a dozen cake pops ready for the day of closing. And
What's it called again?
Big Top Cake Pops. She's in Flower Mound, and she's been doing it forever. And I'm blown away by it. I get them every year for my kids' birthdays and stuff too.
Do you know how long it usually takes her to make them?
Just give her a few days notice. Yeah, like she can have some ready for you next week.
I wanna see what a house cake pop.
Yeah.
Look it
Does
up.
she have like an Instagram?
Yes. Well, and she has Facebook. Big Top Cake Pops. So you'll just be like super amazed by her cake pops. I'm like, how did you make that look like that? So like here's Toy Story ones, like the alien and Mr. Potato Head and Forky, and these have wine bottles, and see there's her pineapple ones, flamingos.
Oh my gosh, those are so, she's got mermaids.
Yeah, she's super talented. So she has house ones in
Oh, I
here.
see. Dinosaurs?
Oh, some Modelo.
Wine?
Oh, I have the rings too.
Oh, I see the little houses.
She'll do things, like she can put pictures on there. Like if you want your picture, she can really have your face on there if you wanted. Like Pokemon.
Starbucks?
Yep, she's done the Starbucks ones. I get tagged in them all the time. With little dump trucks and. This is fun. Oh, here they are. See, and like a little sold sign, and then houses.
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh,
cute.
Oh, I like
And
this
she'll,
one.
you know, whatever flavor you want, that kind of stuff. And like she can print the picture too, like of your logo, if you want your logo, actual logo on there, she can print the edible picture and put it
Oh
on.
yeah, I
the
see
stuff.
this one, that's like little packets of like 6 in the little.
Yeah. And yeah, so she does. Yep. Oh, no, those have flowers on it. I love her.
Yeah.
She's so sweet. So anyway, that's another fun little closing gift idea. It's a tasty one too.
Yeah. I think my
Make sure you order extra for yourself.
my clients, they like to like foster dogs, so I might do like, because I bring Molly to the office all the time and I have them in my card, so I might do like a little gift for Molly and have like treats, like cat and dog treats and just something small.
That's perfect. And I did like Easter, I did a client Easter egg hunt, and then I did a canned food drive at the same time and said, hey, if you bring a canned good item, then you'll get a gift. And it was I had egg shaped and pineapple shaped cake pops, because she can individually wrap them. And so I had those to give out to clients as they came and stuff too. So
That's awesome. I like that. How often do you do events?
supposed to do them once a quarter.
Okay.
And so I do pop buys every month without
Pop-bys
fail.
is
Like that's my
going to
thing.
someone's house and dropping something off.
Like next week, so Wednesday of next week is National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. I like to find just the random holidays or anything to do with anything. I love to bake, so I'm gonna bake a bunch of cookies. I made a little graphic on Canva. I forget what it said. And so we're gonna bag them up and
Just stop by people's houses.
go, just leave them on the porch.
Oh, that is so cute.
So, and clients love it. It's so funny. It says, chip chip hooray, happy National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. And it has a little chocolate chip cookie on there, and it has my logo. And my admin printed them out, we hole punch them, tie them to the bag, and drop them off on clients' front porches. And it's just, I do it once a month, and it keeps me, sometimes it's holiday related, sometimes it's random, nothing, like 4th of July, we handed out sparklers, like left sparklers on front porches and that kind of stuff. So it keeps you, like, they're thinking about you every month. I'll tell you, what was it? Oh, Cinco de Mayo. I did little tequila bottles and little margarita mixes that I got just off of Amazon. Well, I got the tequila bottles from whatever that Total Wine and More. And then the margarita bottles from Amazon, and put them in a bag and did, a tag like this. And I got the best response off of that because, oh my gosh, you're the best roaster ever. You love tequila. But anyway, you don't want to do alcohol every month because there's some people that don't drink.
Yeah.
However, I mix it up and it keeps me top of mind, and they like getting those little texts where I just say, check your porch with the little eyeballs.
How
Right.
many people do you usually hit?
So the original goal is to do like your top 20, right? That's who you love on the most. Those raving fans who are coming back to you, who are actively sending you business. Maybe you know somebody who's getting ready to move in the next year, and you just want to make sure you're staying top of mind, in other ways too. Like I have a couple of clients who are on MLS searches. They're not like super active, but they're watching them, that kind of stuff. I make sure they're part of that. It's kind of grown past that. Like I think we printed 35 tags for the chocolate chip thing, just in case. And I don't get the same. So you want to make sure those core are taken care of all the time, right?
So
And then I add on some extra.
So you do those 20 every month?
Mhm.
Okay.
My
Do you
top
have to-
referrers get stuff every month.
Okay.
And then I'm doing something a little, this is not the normal, but I have clients who I'm doing just over 2 million in business with between July and August, right? So, and they're gonna buy again in 3 years. So I'm doing a bigger thing for them in October. That's gonna cost more, however, so I'm renting a suite at a Stars game. They're huge fans. I'm a bigger fan, but they both play hockey and all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm renting a suite, and then my admin and her husband are coming, my husband's coming, and then we picked our top 3 referring clients and are taking them to this. I had one year where a girlfriend of mine referred 4 people to that year, something stupid good. Well, they love the Rangers, so I bought them tickets to opening day and sent them to them. So there are some little splurges I'll do that cost a little more, but I really want to make sure those my top referring people are really well taken care of. So I do stuff that's specific to that person, But these pop buys don't spend a lot of money on the pop buys. They're really more just to stay top of mind.
Okay.
Yeah. But the client, I'm considering the suite, I'm considering that a client event, not a pop buy or closing gift, because it's way more money than I would spend on either one of those.
Okay.
But I feel like that one's worth it. So, and then last year was the first year I did pumpkin pies on Thanksgiving.
My mom did something like that too. She did like a pie drive.
And it's funny how far people will drive for a $7
Yeah.
Costco pie, but they will drive to see you.
Okay, Costco
Um,
pumpkin pie is the best.
They're massive, yeah. We had like 10 at the house that she ended up not like being able to, she would like send messages like, wanna come by? We had so many and I was like.
Oh, we gave them out to neighbors, and my husband walked to a neighbor and gave it to him, and he goes, "Oh, well, you gave us pumpkin pie. Guess we're gonna have to use you as our realtor when we move, you know?" Well, then last month he calls. He was like, "Hey, I think we're gonna move. Come walk our house." And I'm over there walking it, and he goes, "I told you that pumpkin pie."
What?
Like, that's what gets your business? I thought you loved pumpkin
I
pie.
know.
But it's, so I like those type of client events too, because I mail out an invitation to them. I text to make sure they got the invitation the week before. I'm texting to make sure they're still coming the day up. Like, there's a lot of touches involved with that. And then really good social media presence to that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I need
So,
so.
and you'll get some clients too with your pop buys who will take a picture and tag you. "Oh, I love my realtor," blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So free advertising for that too. I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, contract to close. I'm sorry. Maybe they won't ask me to teach them. Okay, how are we? Oh, I don't want to do this. So I feel like we've talked about a lot of this stuff. So like for inspections, surprise findings, pre-inspect to avoid surprises. I don't have sellers have a pre-inspection done.
Okay.
Some do because they want to know ahead of time if there are going to be any big surprises, right? Well, you have to disclose that inspection. So then you have to turn around and give that to every prospective buyer, and they look at it like, "Oh my gosh, what's this big list of possible repairs to do?" And maybe that inspector finds something that the person who ultimately buys the house, their inspector wasn't going to find, or whatever. Anyway, I understand the reasoning. There are agents that do it, and you might decide to ultimately run your business that way. I don't. So anyway, that's one train of thought, is having the property inspected before you go on the market. So we talked about appraisal issues, loan stuff. I encourage you to work with a lender who's going to do an underwritten approval ahead of time. And again, that's going to make a much stronger offer as well. Those people are still sitting there with me on mute. Oh, there's some in the chat. My bad. Yes, Lori, I know they're on HUD ones. I love you. Can I get a copy of that? What do you want a copy of, Lori? She's not on here anymore. I'll text her. Okay. Lori, love Lori. Probably one of these things. I'll send it to her. Let's see. So contingencies that you're going to have to decide to accept or not accept is like an offer that's contingent on the sale of the buyer's current house. You're not seeing a lot of that in this market for a few different reasons. That buyer might be contingent. However, let's say I accept an offer, my sellers accept an offer that's contingent on the sale of another house, right? Well, then I turn around and get another offer. Well, in that contingency, it tells you once you negotiate another offer, you take it to that, well, you don't take the offer, but you go to the first buyer and say, "Hey, you have X number of days to drop your contingency," whatever on that document. I usually put 3. You have 3 days to drop your contingency and deposit additional earnest funds, or this contract automatically terminates and we go to the next person in line. So people are having to drop their contingency anyway because everything's in multiple offers. We also know that houses are going to sell. So like we used to be in a market where you're like, I don't know, it could take 3 months for this house to sell. And that seller is locked up in this contract for 3 months because they can't get out because this contingency gave them 90 days to sell the first house.
How do you drop your contingent? Like, what do you mean by that?
So you can, basically you're at a higher risk of losing your earnest funds. So what you want to do is talk to the lender at that point and say, hey, you want their house to be under contract, the one they're selling, right? And you want to go to their lender and make sure everything's still good to go on that. And then you also have to consider what type of offer you have on the house they're selling. Is it you don't want a domino effect where like 3 houses in line where everything has to sell for the other one to buy. There are also okay. There are also like bridge loans where a seller can close on their purchase before they have sold theirs, and then once it sells, then those funds go back to the original lender. I don't know exactly how they work. They're a little more expensive, but they exist. There are also iBuyer programs where somebody can, there are companies that will buy the first house cash, and then when you sell yours, you turn around and pay them for it from those funds. I don't know. There's all different options. You just have to decide if you're willing to take a contingency and knowing. So like I had a buyer make an offer on a house this past weekend, and she's contingent on the sale of her house. And that listing agent wanted to know the property address, which was already on the contingency form, but and what we were going to list it at, because we didn't even have it on the market yet. Because then he wanted to run his own comps for the house to see how it's priced for the neighborhood, look at average days on market for the neighborhood, that kind of stuff.
To see if it was gonna.
To see if it's going to sell quickly or if it's something that's just going to sit there, we unrealistic in our asking price, so it's going to sit on the market longer, or that kind of stuff. So.
But do you see contingencies, like offers with contingencies still being accepted right now on this market?
I've had a few accepted.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a lot harder to get them accepted right now. She didn't win, but that's because it was above her comfortable price point. And so they went with the other offer, and he told me, he said it wasn't contingency, it was the sales price,
Okay.
which she knew ahead of time. But you write it up anyway. Okay. So this talks about using DocLoop, but I use DocuSign. Walk the participants through how to prepare sellers and buyers for what? Oh, for closing date. We already talked about that. So all of these documents and stuff that you have your client sign, they're all in that DocuSign room already, but most of them don't know how to access it. So I like to send clients copies of executed contracts. Hey, just for your records. I email them a PDF of them.
And I know I had a realtor, and I'm gonna try to incorporate that at tax time, he sent me whatever paperwork we needed for our taxes. He was like, yeah, I know people move, they can't find the stuff, doesn't matter, and he just emailed me those documents we needed to give to our tax person. And it was another touch.
Yep.
And it was super helpful.
Yeah. And I always tell clients I'll help them run comps, help them fight their tax appraised value to tax time. Texas and our really expensive property taxes. So that's another touch. And then like holding on to the survey for your clients, because you hope to turn around and help them sell the house later. So keeping a copy of that survey. I like to keep you a copy of the appraisal too, because when you list a house, you can put the square footage in there as what's in tax records or what's on an appraisal. So if that appraisal has a higher square footage than the tax records, that's what I'm listing it at.
Okay.
Where if it's the other way around, I'm sticking with tax records and picking the higher square footage. Now, of course, if you buy a house and it was listed at a lower square footage and your appraisal is higher, don't tell tax, because they're gonna raise your taxes. Like, don't correct CAD, but anyway. Dates for buyers, this goes back to at the very beginning, going through the contract, picking out all the important dates, creating your own timeline. So after y'all have heard some stuff, how do you think you're best gonna tell your clients the dates that they need to keep up with, or?
We create like an email template
Mhm.
and put important dates on there.
Yep. You can do something kind of like the checklist, but instead it's like, earnest funds due and then the due date, that kind of stuff. You can brand it, put your logo up here, send that to them. How do you see as leaving a good impression with your clients? Like, how do you want to do it? How do you think it's done? Like, you recently bought a house, how did that realtor leave a good impression, or
She
what
did,
did they
she
do?
was
She
awful.
didn't. Don't say names.
No, I won't.
Um,
Didn't appreciate you more.
That's
Well-
why she got in. She knows what not
She is
to do.
actually-
Exactly. I mean, that's another way to learn is what not to do. You're like, wow, I'm not doing what that person did. Yeah. So how would you leave a good impression with your client?
I mean, we've bought and sold a few homes since we've been married, and I mean, I just think our realtor was really professional, but also personal.
Mhm.
And, the gift at the end was really like helpful. And she didn't even do anything memorable. She gave us like gift cards to go out on date nights and, and before kids, that was nice. But I just think keeping it personal and like personalizing your gifts and things like that based on what they
Wow. Yeah. Love it.
I was like me. Staying on top of things, so like keeping them updated on everything that needs to happen, informing them of things, especially like new buyers, those personal touches, like giving them a little present at the end. Also being helpful with other things that they might need. So like, for example, these buyers want to do renovations, and my parents know a lot of people that like help with that stuff. It's cheap, so they want a list of that and giving them that list or things like that.
And it's good to have a preferred vendor list in your pocket anyway. And some will actually like have a printed one that they'll give people at closing and stuff. But I try to make sure like my clients know that if they're looking for anything for their house, let me know. And because I've got access to, if I don't know a vendor that does it, I have access to hundreds of agents. Somebody has a vendor that they like that does it, right? So I have clients that still come back to me. I want to do this. Who do you recommend? So that's great. Become that resource. And again, they're like at the other Keller Williams office I used to be part of, they had a red book where it was a list of vendors. Now that was like people who paid to be in it, so I can trust that. However, you can have your own red book where it's the painters you like, the flooring people you like, blah, blah, blah. And so you can just hand it out. There are websites that do that too. Homekeeper. That's, again, beyond what I'm keeping up with. Follow up. So at closing, make sure you're going into command and you're fixing their address, right? If you have the buyer, put their new address in there, put their home anniversary, their house anniversary date in there. I mail out house anniversary cards after the first year and I have a little poem. Once the boxes are away, blah, 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 I don't know. Handwritten, and that I mail to them at the 1 year anniversary. There's another touch, right? So make sure you're updating your contacts in command at closing, not at closing, right after closing, right? Putting them in your, well, yeah, in your database, but like the different touch programs, whatever they're called now.
Oh, smart plans.
Smart plans, yes, that one. Make sure you're setting them up in a smart plan. Even when you put their new address in there and it asks if you want to send them the monthly neighborhood update, even though they just bought the house. I love to put people in that because they like to see, oh, look, I'm watching my value go up and that kind of stuff.
Do you
So
usually ask them before you put them on there, or do you just do it?
I just do it.
Okay.
Like here's your NAR fact, 88% of clients say they would use the real estate agent again, but only 12% do. And I think some of that is just they don't stay in contact. And so staying in contact, however that looks for you and that client. And again, like the smart plans are awesome and everything. However, I think you can go above and beyond that, and I tweak some of it for per client, you know, that kind of stuff. And then presence on social media, like back in March or something, we did a giveaway for a little cooler, so took a picture of it and blue bonnets and stuff, and then I put one of our sticker mule. That's who I do my stickers from. Sorry.
I was like, what?
I did not call you a sticker mule. Sorry. Sticker Mule is the company I get my stickers from, and there are different types. You know that for cars or whatever. Don't do their plastic keychains because your logo will scratch off other world, just so you know. But the stickers are great, and I actually bought them and put them on top of the pumpkin pies too. Put them on the lid of every pumpkin pie. So like we did a giveaway and put our business sticker on the front of the cooler and took a picture of blue bonnets and stuff. Like, hey, share this for a chance to do the giveaway. Then I did a live drawing and I think I might have had one of my kids pick the name out of the tub or whatever. So clients get real excited about that, to be part of those little random giveaways and stuff. So just another way to stay in front of them. Literally losing my voice. And I said literally, you can tell I have a preteen child. So just another way to stay in front of them, and don't make your social media all real estate, because people are going to unfollow you or hide you or not interact with you. Make it like 70% personal and like 30% business, share some stuff in there and that kind of stuff. But
Do you have separate business social media and a personal, or do you just have both?
I'm separate.
Okay, cool, that's what I have, but, so then you're separate when you still do like things of what you're doing or what's going on, and then just add social, okay.
And like
I wasn't
Chrissy
sure how to
Maloof
do
is
that.
really good at it too, because she has a business page, but she finds a way to tie in some of the stuff she's doing in real estate into just fun little random posts on her personal page. So I know she stays top of mind to her sphere. Like, oh my gosh, I'm out showing this house and would you look at this, or how cool is this feature? You know, you can throw that stuff on your personal page, but when you're like, hey, my coming soon listing, or hey, I have this giveaway or whatever, that's on my business page and I'm sharing it to my personal page.
Okay, yeah, got it, thank you.
So this is something I don't do. Send a customer satisfaction survey, just not for any reason, I just never have. So it might be something that you choose to do. I'd maybe do like Survey Monkey or something, as opposed to like this cool handwritten one. You typed it. They mailed it. Here's a return address, return address envelope. And it's good to have feedback. You know, I'm not against the feedback or anything like that, but it's just not something I've put in place. Handwritten notes are great. I do that a lot. Love handwritten notes. I'll watch what's going on in people's personal lives on Facebook. Oh, your dog just died. I'm going to send you a pet. I shouldn't have used you for that example. Because you have dogs. I'm sorry. You're just right there.
I was like, okay.
So say somebody's dog just died. Point two.
Your bird just died.
Yeah, so I'm sending a pet sympathy card. I'm sending, you know, kid did something. I've sent cards to their kids like, hey, congratulations on whatever, winning this baseball championship. You know, like just watching what's going on in their life and kind of making those little touches like that. I have a sticky note on my computer, mail 10 handwritten cards a week. Just again, that's another touch to stay top of mind. And people are like, oh my gosh, this person really cares about me. That's so sweet. You should care, but hello, random person. I do some other random things sometimes. Like I have a subscription to Tiff's Treats, or whatever you call it, a business membership to Tiff's Treats. People love Tiff's Treats right now. And if you have a business, it's like $20 or something, well, I get free delivery. And then they send coupons all the time. So like if I know somebody is working their tail off to get their house ready to sell, maybe the day before staging, I'm gonna send them cookies. Hey, you've just been doing an awesome job. You're working hard. I know this is gonna go great on the sale of your house. Maybe somebody has an anniversary or birthday, and you can't do it for everybody because that's a lot of money. But just like random, I'll do, you know, again, just another touch. What's this person doing in their life? They need a pick me up. I had a client who was, and she's given me a lot of business, but she was like nominated for teacher of the year at her school. So I was like, hey, awesome, you know, send her tip streets for that. Hey, great job. So again, just finding ways
Flowers
to.
to my clients after the meeting, the lunch meeting, I got them the refrigerator to take care. They had roses on
That's,
sale.
okay, the downstairs, someone was like, those are beautiful flowers. And
Kroger has
Beth
had some
mentioned
in
that some of my
Target.
flowers for their clients.
Yeah, I need just to put the filler in the
Yeah.
thing and I'm gonna drop them off because they're trying to get rid of everything, so I'm not gonna buy or plant. So I'm just gonna take her flowers, they'll be on the table for open house on this weekend. And I know she'll appreciate it.
Yep.
I think it cost me $10.
Wow.
Yeah, Target has had some really pretty flowers lately. I keep walking past them. I'm like, who do I need to buy flowers for? Those are so pretty. Other closing gift ideas are, you can buy return address stamps that are customizable. So that's one, even though people don't send out a lot of letters anymore, but a history book about the town. I mean, you can get into housewarming parties. Okay, so this is really bigger teams that do this kind of stuff, that do a lot of volume, but they'll offer to throw a housewarming party. And I'm going to get this wrong exactly how they do it because I don't do it, but they'll go in with like the lender or something, a business partner to help split the cost of catering. And they ask the sellers or the buyers, their clients, for the list of people they want to invite. Well, then they put that list in their database. They send out the invites and stuff. And then you're there and, you know, you plan it. Hey, you have 60 days for move-in, you know, pick a date and we're going to cater this. And you know, walk around and meet people and, oh yeah, we're the realtor who helped them get this house, blah, blah, blah. Well, they say that, you don't say that. I wouldn't. But anyway, so that's one thing that people do, and that's like their closing gift, kind of everything wrapped in one. So again, I mean, that's something you can think about, but I think your profit margins aren't there at this point, where I'd be spending, and it's really only a few $100s, but if you start to add up spending a few $100s on this and a few $100s on this and all, it just really adds up. So getting paid, they've taught you how to do that stuff, right, in Command, or maybe I don't have time to do that right now, but and this is all incorrect because it's talking about green sheets and stuff. We don't do green sheets anymore now that we have Command. It's all done in your opportunities, right? So once you have a contract, you go into your opportunities and you enter the contract information in there, and then that you've accepted the contract. And then they say at least 10 days before closing, you need to have all of your documents uploaded into your opportunities and submitted to the MC. And then you can go into, so while you're in there, in that opportunity, there's documents and then there's commissions, and you go in there and put your commission in there and submit it to the MC. And they use that to create the CVA, which is how you get paid, commission, disbursement, authorization. We're lucky enough to work at a brokerage, a company that lets you get paid at closing. There are some where they require every single closing check to go to the broker first, and then like 2 or 3 days later, they've cut you a check. Was not fun. So it's awesome that at Keller Williams, just have all your documents in on time. And then that CDA goes to title, and title then cuts Keller Williams their check and you your check. So the day of closing, you get to take your money home.
Question, is it always check, or is there any way for us to like have Keller Williams like route it to our bank account or route it to like a savings account? Is that something that?
So you're not getting paid by Keller Williams,
Yeah,
right?
but-
So it's gonna come from the title company.
Oh, the title.
And you can absolutely give them wiring instructions.
Okay.
There are some, like the Freedom Title in Denton and Flymount are who I work with all the time. So they literally keep my wiring instructions on file. So when I have a closing with them, they just wire my check to my business checking account.
And how do you do that? Do you just email them do you just tell them, hey, I'd like to?
Yeah, you can give them a voided check.
Okay,
And they just know, like, at the Flower Mound one, it's James Q, and he just knows, oh, it's Rebecca. I'm gonna wire her. I don't know how they keep track of it on their end, but he just wires my check to me. Now, if it's a title company you've never used before, I'll like show up early. They know you get paid, but I don't like to talk about my commissions at the closing table
Yeah.
in front of clients, and because again, it's their day. So maybe show up to the closing early with a voided check and say, hey, I want to get my commission check wired to me. And there's a little form that they'll have you fill out, and you can take care of it before your client even shows up. And once it funds, they'll just wire it to
what
you.
if I don't have checks? Like, I don't.
Well, you just need your wiring instructions.
Okay, cool.
You can get that straight from your bank.
Okay, cool, yeah.
So they'll have a form to fill out. If you have a voided check, they'll just like tape it to it. If you don't, then you just have to fill out your account information and have it just routed straight to there. Come on, pretty lady. You know me, I can't stop talking.
She's giving you all good stuff, so you don't work stuff.
Okay, let's just wrap it up with send one to you. What am I sending to you? Gabrielle?
I think she's talking about those documents. I think she's.
The documents? Okay. The 3 that I gave out?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. So I'm sorry, and that's my fault. I'm not paying attention to the messages behind me. Okay, let's wrap it up with everybody give me one aha from today or something that one thing that you're gonna implement in your business.
The touches that you mentioned.
Oh, the Popeyes?
Yes, the Popeyes.
Also look on Pinterest. Literally, I have a board, you can find me on Pinterest. I have a board that's called Popeyes, and you can just search real estate Popeyes, and people have fantastic ideas.
Okay.
So, love it. David, you're the only person who's I know, just so you know.
The whole process, like from the offer to closing,
Yeah,
became more clear to me.
good, good. You're gonna make a checklist or something, a timeline to kind of help you. Yeah, that's good. Stay on top of it.
Yeah, just to start, like now with my first one, like making sure I have a checklist and a system ready to go.
Perfect.
Because I am nervous about like meeting all these deadlines and like, am I gonna miss something? Am I gonna forget and screw it up? But
That's good. As long as you when you go under contract, just go through that contract. The dates are all in there, and create your own little, okay, by this date, do this. Yeah. And if you're super techie, some people will create notifications in their phone. Hey, remind me a day before this is due or whatever, and you'll get that little notification or whatever.
and I love what you said too about doing a marketing write-off versus the closing gift write-off.
Yeah.
So
And to get it, you stay top of mind to those people more. That's awesome. Oh, so Chelsea Banks is the Cutco lady I work with. There are a bunch of Cutco
Yes.
reps, but that's who
Chelsea
I
Banks, I think I wrote her down.
might have her
Do you have her contact information for me?
probably.
Stay on
Yes.
within my own
Okay,
information.
205 239 1634. She should be like, why did 5 new people call me today? She's great, and every once in a while she'll email me, hey, do you need a refill on anything? Or hey, we're running this special for whatever, this knife scissor combo, do you want them? So, and I don't give them to every single person, because maybe I've worked with this client 3 times. They don't need a knife every time,
Yeah.
but it's really nice to.
What would y'all give, like someone, my sellers, they're not buying anywhere right now.
Right.
Because the other job transfer, so like they're paying for an apartment down where they're moving, and then they'll move back here. But so like, what would be a good gift for a seller that isn't
Yeah, I really got.
Getting it in a home.
Doesn't really know.
Are they leaving the air, like the state, or are they?
Well, he's going to New Braunfels. She's a teacher, so she's staying here with
Ooh.
her parents for.
You get them like a Schlitterbahn season pass. Do they have kids? Do they like outside? Oh. So I love
Newly
it.
married and now they're being apart for a year.
You can
Oh.
get them something to work with being apart, like maybe something that they could use.
I was fast.
Like,
I'm just
to be
kidding.
apart. I don't
Um,
know exactly what, like you could look up ideas on things that would help them. Long distance.
there's like a box you can subscribe to that gives like date ideas once a month or something. I wonder if there's one that exists for people who are in long distance relationships or
Netflix part. and they can watch the same movie at the same
Together.
time?
I don't know, it's a tough one, let me think about it.
I'll let you know if I ever look at the same situation and he's trying to figure something out. By the way, I was gonna ask him to give me the contact information so that I can.
Oh, one more aha, no, 2 more ahas.
Oh, yeah.
What's your aha
Oh,
or
mine?
thing you're gonna implement?
Mine?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know who that is.
I like the checklist, because I like checklists, and I do definitely like all these Popeye ideas.
Yes. Popeyes are fun.
I also like the Popeye.
Yeah. You can do a package of popcorn, just pop by to see how you were doing or
Do you have a
whatever.
rep for your 31 bats?
Yes, Darlene. Darlene Sweet. Yes, that's a tricky last name to say. Love her, been buying from her forever. So let me give, maybe easier to give her an email address. No, let me just give you a number. Okay, so Darlene, 972-679-0420. And these are fun because there's so many different bag types. You know, like you can get wine bottle coolers. You can, I mean, it's just, they have everything. I should sell 31 because I have way too much of it. And yours kind of same thing, pop buys and so, okay. Well, thank y'all so much. I can give y'all my number in case you have any questions or need anything. Rebecca Douglas. Because I could put it on one of these. It's 940-595-9909. Yes, that's a real number. That was way back when you got to pick your phone number.
Oh, wow.
Like I worked at Best Buy and I was like 17 and they're like, here's 5 available phone numbers. Do you like any of those? Cool, I'll take that one. So random. Anyway, so thank y'all for listening to me talk for 3 hours. Y'all let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. What did you want me to see about sharing? Because I forget.
There was the Christina, the buyer's agent, the agent that you worked with who had that program where.
Oh, yes, the timeline. Okay, thank you. Yes, let me look that up. Okay, that's what it was. Yay, thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh, aha. Oh, I didn't ask them for ahas.
Did I miss it?
Pop buys and checklist. Yay, good job, everybody.
Thank you.
I don't
Yeah,
like,
got it.
what are you doing? Oh.
Good job.
Thank you.
Isn't that funny? We all just, we're some
We'll stop
perimeter
this and start the
sitting
new one.
real estate agents.
Bye, love you, thank you.
We're some perimeter sitting real estate agents, like that